Chapter 1555. Gain from the Chaos Divine Treasure. Fight. 2. The Will of War laughed wantonly, and at the same time, his attacks became fiercer. The three chaotic divine demons had thought that they could join forces to kill the Will of War after displaying their full strength. Unexpectedly, the Will of War did not use his full strength. The suppression he had imagined did not happen at all. Even though they had displayed their true strength, they were still unable to suppress or even kill the Will of War. They looked at each other. They did not panic even though their expressions were a little ugly. Too. However, since they had the confidence to surround and kill the famous Will of War, as though he was invincible in the world. The heavenly furnace Lord's expression turned ugly. He had already started fighting with slightly invading chaotic divine demon. Then, because they only had one supreme god on their side, void and disappeared. Joe Marshall also chose to take action. The Will of War's eyes narrowed. That just as he was about to take action, was in charge of taking over one of Yellow River's one chaotic divine demon supreme god. After saying that, as for the other four the Yellow River chaotic divine demons, Joe Marshall was in charge of dealing with them. The vast Yellow River Joe Marshall used quickly appeared in the surrounding chaotic void. The mysterious dragon Nether River surrounded the surrounding chaotic god-level sword technique. In less than a moment, all kinds of law skills erupted from his hands, from the chaotic overwhelming everyone with an ugly expression. It looked like he was the myriad law sword master. He said through gritted teeth. Among the four supreme gods were two. Had originally wanted to use the chaos escape technique to escape God realm, but he didn't expect the other party to use the Yellow River. There were a total of four supreme gods void here, coupled with the support of the supreme divine the will of Yellow River bodies, and the will of combat power had already far exceeded that of directly rushed up to attack the heavenly furnace Lord. However, in a 2-on-1 even battle. So they were still in suppressed by Joe Marshall. It could be seen how terrifying Joe Marshall's combat strength was. At this rate, at this moment, the heavenly Joe Marshall was also feeling very carefree. He would during this period of time. At this rate, due to the continuous if the heavenly furnace in the total did not have any strength every day, he would definitely especially die. The subsequent addition of the new supreme god. He knew that there was not much hope for such a thing to happen. Stronger. He was now at the back of the Supreme Will's camp after all. Skills, combat it was very difficult for other chaotic divine demons and so on of 10 supreme Will realm to appear the augmentation above. Joe Marshall, still maintain who had been observing the battlefield while fighting 4 people at once. His eyes immediately lit up. The black dragon Dao sword in Joe Marshall's hand stabbed into the forehead of the great three supreme god. He didn't have high expectations. Demon. He just needed and a sound rang out. With an assist, this grade 3 supreme god considered chaotic divine demon looked at Joe Marshall in a dragon god. At the thought of this, even if my strength gradually became like immediately stomped his right god and summoned everything happened because of master strength. He also asked, isn't it too much of victory and to assist also happened in an instant, and the will of Joe Marshall seized the opportunity to get stronger as much as you can. When the little dragon doesn't matter how strong you are, stunned when it matters his participation well before the other. Joe Marshall transmitted his voice. And when he heard that Joe Marshall wanted to kill the grade 2 supreme god after figuring more dumbfounded, he immediately released chaotic divine law skills to the two supreme realm existence of light, the will of Yellow River, and the will of war. Immediately Joe Marshall snorted coldly skill and transformed from the dragon into a 9-colored stream of light. During the battle, he instantly appeared in front of the god of all life and Zhou Wu and instantly killed him. Then they were more or less relieved. Then he dared to participate in the battle between the supreme of light again. Even though he did not contribute much, supreme god, his courage was the chaotic divine demon. On the other side, this grade 4 when the heavenly furnace chaotic saw that the little supreme was specially left behind by Joe Marshall between them. Even though he was the strongest among all the chaotic divine demons, even attacked Joe Marshall through the will of Yellow River and the will of war. Was naturally no match for Joe Marshall. By the will of Yellow River after exchanging a few blows with Joe Marshall, you actually attacked he was suddenly bitten to death by the dragon god of all life that suddenly appeared. The heavenly furnace lord was too lazy to say more. An old silver after a while, Joe Marshall looked at the embroidery of the dragon god of all life on his was finally and killed by the will of Yellow dragon god of all life relied on its ability to transcend the heavens. Joe Marshall also received that the number one treasure vault the completion was a treasure space one shared Joe between the main body and the clones. Sure enough, as long as shuttled between the main body and the various chaotic divine demon, what a restless dragon willpower would be good at fighting. The only way to win for his time mission is to kill a sneak existence. The dragon god of all life said indifferently. Sure enough, Marshall did not have some experience. He put away the corpses of the four supreme god chaotic divine demons. The will of Yellow River looked at the corpse of the heavenly furnace lord, and together with his supreme god subordinates, he turned to look at the will of war and smiled. At this point, you came in
among
time.
the invading chaotic divine demons,
I really wouldn't have been able to deal with him
gods
alone.
had been dealt with.
The will of war
The remaining
nodded,
20
and suddenly
chaotic
spat
divine
out a
demons
large mouthful
were
of blood.
originally unable
At the
to
same
deal
time,
with the 99
the aura on
top-notch
his body
master god
suddenly
tiers
weakened by more
that
than
Joe
half.
Marshall had brought
What's
with
wrong
him.
with you?
Now that
Yellow
they saw
River's
that the
expression
supreme gods
changed drastically
led them
as he
here
had
all
hurriedly
died in
ran
front
to
of
his
him.
side and
They
asked
immediately
with concern.
lost the intention to continue
I suffered
fighting.
some injuries
They
today.
immediately turned
It's
into
nothing
99
serious.
streams of light
The will
of
of war
various
shook his
nomological
head.
laws.
It's not a
and
small
flew
injury.
in all directions.
The Yellow Rivers
wanting
will
to
frown
escape.
slightly. However,
He could tell that the
Jojo
will of
naturally
war's
would not let
injuries
them
were
leave.
very serious.
These were all living
it could be
chaos
said to be the
divine
most
treasures.
serious injury
Even Joe Marshall
he had ever
would sigh
seen
after
since
one
he
of
knew
them
the will of
escaped.
war.
Hence,
It wouldn't be an
he immediately
exaggeration to
ordered
say
his
that he was on the
99
verge
Lord
of
gods
death to capture all the master god tier chaotic
He was
divine
injured
demons
by those three
who wanted
chaotic
to
divine
escape
demons
and eliminate them
The will
one
of
by
Yellow
one.
River thought of
Then,
something and
Joe
asked,
Marshall personally
how could those
extracted
three
their
idiots
spoils
hurt
of
me?
war.
Jojo
Jojo
was
was
very
said
satisfied with the
smile.
result.
Then, the
His
20
expression
master
turned
god tier
solemn.
chaotic
It
divine
was the
demons
chaos will that
dropped
injured
a total
me.
of 80 units
Chaos will.
of chaotic divine
Yellow
treasures.
River's will's expression
The 5
changed
supreme god
drastically
chaotic
as he
divine
said in
demons
disbelief.
dropped 5
How
units
can
of
the chaotic
chaotic
divine
will deal with you
treasures
personally
just by
his
dropping their
opponents
basics
should be the supreme
with
will
the enhancement
and the
of
crimson
the
over
Lord
talent and title.
Under normal
Each
circumstances,
supreme god chaotic
yes.
divine treasure,
But it's not normal.
dropped a total of 18
The will of
units
war
of
shook his
chaotic
head,
divine treasures,
and his expression
the 5
became
of them
even more
added up to
solemn.
90 units
If I'm
of
not
chaotic
wrong,
divine treasures.
the chaos will is going
all
to
of
launch
them
an
added
all-out
up to
attack on Lord
170
Supreme
units
Will
of
and
chaos
Lord
divine
Crimson
treasures.
Overlord.
My main
That's why
body
he
can now
allowed the
harvest
supreme
more than
willpower
200
experts
units
under
under
chaos
him divine
to
treasures
disregard the
every
rules
day
and
through the
infiltrate our
space-time
army,
chaotic divine
launching
demons.
a surprise attack on our
Coupled with the
rear.
170
The reason why
units
they
of
did
chaos
such a
divine
thing should be
treasures
to lure you
provided
away
by the
from
time
me
ruins
and
every
leave me
day.
alone.
In
Then,
other words,
the chaos will
the main
personally
body can
kill
now
me.
harvest about
The will of
400
war
units
said,
of chaos
the Yellow
divine
River's
treasures
will's
a day.
expression changed.
When he thought of
the
this,
dignified will
Joe
of
Marshall's
chaos had
expression
personally
could not
come
help
to kill
but
the
be
will of
pleasantly
war.
surprised.
This may sound
In
ridiculous,
that case,
but it's
doesn't
possible.
that mean that the main
This was
body
because
only
the will
needs
of
3
war
days to
was the
upgrade
most
the
likely
territory
existence
again, and then
under
upgrade the
supreme
country? Will to be
He
promoted
muttered,
to the will
a
of
smile
war.
appeared on his
If
face.
he could kill the will
He
of war,
originally thought
it
that
would
1,000
undoubtedly
units
greatly
of
weaken
chaos
the
divine
future
treasures
development
was a
of the
very
supreme
distant
will's
goal.
faction.
However,
In addition,
from the looks of it,
if what
it
the
didn't
will of
seem
war
difficult.
said about the general
Right at that
attack
moment,
was true,
how dare
then
you?
it was even
A
more
loud
necessary
shout suddenly
to kill
rang
the will
out.
of war.
The world suddenly
An
fell
existence that
silent.
might advance
Time
to the will
stopped.
of war in the
Space
future.
froze.
Otherwise,
Everything is silent.
when the will of war
The
advanced
master
to the
god
willpower
tiers and
realm,
supreme gods
the
around
supreme
Joe
will would
Marshall
have
were
3
frozen
supreme
in this
willpower
instant,
realm existences,
unable to move,
and the chaos
even the
will only
expressions
had
on their
him
faces
as a
and
supreme
the thoughts in
willpower
their
realm
hearts were
expert.
frozen in this
The
instant,
situation would be
unable
even
to
more
continue.
disadvantageous
At
to the
this
chaos
moment,
will.
Even
If
though
the
Joe
chaos
Marshall
will
was
personally
maintaining
came
his
to
king
kill you,
state,
how did
he
you
felt
survive?
that his soul,
The
and
Yellow
will had
Rivers
also
will reacted
stopped
and
could not
asked
think.
curiously.
The last
I had
bit
a
of his
premonition that I might
rationality
be in
almost
danger after you
instinctively
left.
knew what had
So
happened
not
the
long
moment
after
this
you
terrifying
left,
thing
I
happened.
immediately used
An
the
existence at
communication
the
secret
supreme
treasure
realm,
left
it had
behind by the
descended.
supreme will
Is this
and
an
secretly
existence at the
contacted the
supreme
supreme
realm?
will.
Even if
Asking
my
him to
current
quickly
strength has
rush over
already
to
reached
save
a decent level among
Later,
the grade 4
when the
supreme
chaos will
gods,
began to attack
I still
me,
can't
the
resist such
supreme
an
will indeed
existence.
appeared successfully
At this moment,
saving my life.
Joe Marshall deeply
However,
felt the
before
difference
this,
between a god's
I was
spirit
severely
and a
injured
will
because
level
I took a blow
existence,
from the chaos
especially when a
head-on.
will level
Fortunately, I
existence with
survived.
great malice towards
The
him
will
oppressed
of war
him with
said
his will.
in a self-mocking
He
manner.
felt this even more
However,
deeply.
Both the
If the
will of
supreme
Yellow
god
River
was the
and Joe
pinnacle of the
Marshall
god
could hear the
spirit,
danger.
in that
At
case,
the same time,
an existence
Joe
at the
Marshall was
supreme
even more
realm
shocked by the
had
battle
completely
prowess of the
broken
will of
free
war
from the
as
constraints of the
expected of the
concepts
fourth
and laws
supreme
of the god
expert,
spirits,
who had the
and
potential
reached
to
the
advance
supreme
to the
level above
willpower
the god
level.
spirits.
He could actually
The two are
survive an
completely
attack from the
incomparable.
chaos.
It
Well,
could
before
even
the
be said
supreme
that
will
they were not
arrived.
the same species.
Fortunately,
It was unbelievable.
I'm just a clone of the
Right
main
at that
body.
moment,
Coupled
boom,
with
boom,
the
boom,
existence
boom,
of the Holy
an
Fate
earth-shattering
umbrella
sound
it
suddenly
shouldn't
rang out
implicate
from
the
the main
primal
body.
chaos void.
Joe Marshall
Yellow
thought
River's
to
will
himself,
of war and Joe
furthermore,
Marshall
an
raised their
existence
heads and
that
looked
might
up.
have long
3
perished in a
supreme
time
figures
ruin.
were fighting in the primal
The attack chaos
him
void.
after his death
Every
shouldn't
time they
implicate
attacked,
him.
the
Who knew
chaos
how
would
many
collapse
years later,
The
right?
entire chaotic
Just as
void
Marshall
could not
was
withstand
prepared
the
to accept
aftershocks
his
of
death
the
in
battle
peace.
emitted by their
Heavenly
attacks.
Furnace Lord,
Later
you are
on,
courting death.
the chaotic
A
void
delicate
was even
shout
broken,
sounded,
then,
revealing the ultimate
the mighty
void
yellow river
environment of the
underworld
outside
river
world.
flew over from
The
afar,
three deities'
like an
expressions
abyssal dragon
became
that
solemn.
crossed the heavens.
This was because the
Then
three
it charged
experts
into a
fighting
certain
were the
chaotic
supreme will.
void.
The
The
crimson
chaotic
overlord
void let out a
and the
muffled
chaos
groan.
will.
Then, a chaotic divine demon emitting scorching flames with the
Chapter
head of an ancient
1558
furnace emerged
Time
from the
ruins
chaotic
completed.
void.
4,000
Yellow River,
capital
you came
units of
quickly.
soldiers.
The chaotic
1.
divine demon
The general
known as the
attack
Heavenly
actually
Furnace
started.
Lord chuckled.
The will of
Then,
Yellow River muttered
he looked
when
at
he
Joe
saw
Marshall.
this.
who
Don't
had already
hesitate.
regained consciousness.
Let's go support the
What I
Supreme
didn't
Will
expect
together.
was that this little
The Will
fellow
of War
from your
quickly
Supreme
came
Will
back to his
faction
senses
would actually
and said
use
in a
your
low
highest
voice,
level seeking
"But
fire
you're
seed."
wounded." The
Before
Yellow
seeing the
Rivers
arrival
will
of
looked
a
at the
supreme
near-death
will,
injury of the
he
Will of
revealed a
War
look of
and
pity.
hesitated.
If this
His
fellow
injuries
wasn't so
did not
timid,
look like
he
he
could
might have
continue
died
fighting.
before he could use
It's
the
just a
seeking
mortal
fire
wound.
seed.
The Will of War said lightly.
Chapter
Then,
1556.
he suddenly hammered the
completing
spot
the
between
time
his
mission.
eyebrows
1.
where the divine
Yellow
spark
Rivers
was.
will remain
Something
silent
magical
with a cold
happened.
expression.
A new
He
energy
was actually
burst out of
somewhat
his
puzzled.
divine spark.
He wasn't
and
sure
quickly
if this
circulated
fellow,
throughout
who
the
had
Will
used
of
the
War's
highest
body.
level seeking
The
fire
Will of
seed,
War had
who had
known
just
in
been
advance
seriously
that the
injured
Supreme
and
was
on the
coming
verge
to
of
attack.
death.
Or if
Recovered
it was
rapidly
really
as
in
the
the blink of
heavenly
an eye.
furnace Lord had
It was
said.
even stronger
It was
than when it
because
was
he
at
was
its
timid
peak.
that he had used
In
the
my
highest
condition,
level
I
seeking
can still
fire
hold
seed
out
in
for a
advance.
while.
Actually,
When time passes,
he had come a
he'll be
long
even
time
weaker.
ago.
During
However,
this period of
when
time,
he saw that there
it
were
should
no
be
other
enough for the
chaotic
Supreme
divine
Will to kill
demons
a
at the
few
Supreme
unmatched
God
wills.
or Master God
The
tier
Will of
level
War
on the
recovered
battlefield,
and heaved a sigh
he
of
was
relief.
immediately furious.
Yellow Rivers will
This was
reacted
because
well
he felt
seeing
that
this.
he had been deceived.
However, it stunned Joe
Furthermore,
Marshall.
It was
Then,
a Master
he
God
sighed
tier.
inwardly.
Deceiving a
This
Supreme
supreme
Will was
existence like
indeed
him.
worthy of being the number
However,
one expert
he wasn't
under
a
the
rash
willpower,
god,
so he
he
didn't
indeed
appear
had enough
immediately.
methods to turn
Instead,
the tables.
He observed
could even
silently
save
from the
himself
side.
from a near-death
The Will
injury,
of War was powerful,
and still dared to
so he
continue
wasn't
fighting.
worried that anything would
Awesome.
happen to him.
Right at that moment,
in a short period
he
of
suddenly
time,
saw the Will of Yellow
Therefore,
River.
he was
And the
relatively
Will of War
patient
turned to look
until
at him.
the appearance of the
Junior,
heavenly
stay
furnace
here.
Lord.
A
When
Supreme
he
Will
sensed
realm
the heavenly
existence from the
furnace Lord's
chaos will
supreme
camp
will
has just died
Yellow
here.
Rivers will
No
was
other
shocked.
Supreme Will
And then
realm
there's the
expert
rest.
should dare to
Right
come
at
over
that
in the
moment,
short term.
Joe Marshall,
The Will of
who
War
had recovered,
in a
stood
while,
up and
a
smiled
group
at
of
the
supreme
heavenly
gods
furnace
should
Lord
come
in
to
the
you to
sky.
help heal their
Joe
injuries.
Marshall, who had
At that
recovered,
time,
stood
stood
up
up and
for a
smiled
favor
at
and
the
saved
heavenly
them.
furnace Lord
Yellow
in the
Rivers
sky.
will said,
Why are you
"Rest
still
assured,
shouting
your
nonsense
excellency,
without evidence?
leave this to me.
This emperor is
Joe
not
Marshall
a coward."
nodded.
Yellow
This emperor
Rivers
knew
knew
long
long
ago
ago
that
nodded
you would
and
come.
flew away.
So he
On the
used
way
the
to the
seeking fire
battlefield of the
seed
Supreme
to
Will
invite the
realm.
will of
The
Yellow
Yellow
River
Rivers
over.
will suddenly said,
As he spoke,
"Did you
Joe
see
Marshall
that?"
glanced at Yellow
Yes.
River's will.
The Will of War
His
nodded.
expression did not
That
change
Junior
on the
has
surface,
the power of the
but
Supreme
he
Will.
felt a little
If
emotional.
I'm not wrong,
It's beautiful.
he should be the
His
successor
temperament
chosen
was
by the
also
Supreme
one in
Will.
a million.
At
No
this
wonder
point,
Brother Soul
the
Heaven
Will of War
couldn't forget
smiled
him.
and praised.
As for
That
Yellow
Junior
River
has
will,
extraordinary
it looked at
talent.
him in surprise.
He already has the
Then,
combat power
he
of a
sensed
top
something in
Supreme
his
God at the
expression
Master
changed
God tier
slightly.
level.
His
When
gaze
I was
at
at the
Joe
same
Marshall's
age and
suddenly
realm as
became
him,
much gentler.
I was far
As for
inferior
the
to him.
chaotic divine
Where
demon
did
who
the
was known
Supreme
as
Will
the
choose
heavenly
such a
furnace
good air?
Lord, the
His
Yellow
expression
Rivers will
darkened.
also smiled.
Kid, how
You're
can we
just a
guess
small
Lord
Master
Supreme Will's
God's tier.
methods?
You
The
only
Will
reached
of War
the Supreme
nodded.
God realm with the help of law
At the
skills
same
and
time,
mystic techniques.
this time ruins
How
is
dare
worth
you be
it.
rude to me?
Not only did I
He'll
see
teach
the
you what it
intense
means to
battle
respect
between
the
the
strong.
Supreme Willpower realm
As soon
experts,
as he finished speaking,
but I also
the
saw
lid
the
of the
battle
furnace
between the
above the
Supreme
heavenly
Willpower,
furnace Lord's
the
head
Crimson
suddenly
Overlord,
opened,
and the Chaos
then
Will.
a dark red
I'm
divine
afraid
fire
there are
flew
a
out
few
and
Supreme
pounced
Will
at Joe
realm
Marshall.
existences who have never
Shockingly,
experienced
it was the
such a
divine
thing,
flame
right?
of the Supreme
Joe
Will
Marshall
realm.
lamented.
Joe Marshall
Right at that moment,
subconsciously held
a scarlet
his breath
stream of
in the
light
light
descended
descended
from the
sky.
sky.
However,
And flew towards the
he
area
wasn't
where they
flustered
were.
or afraid.
Joe Marshall
In the
could
next
tell at a
moment,
glance
a
that the
beautiful
other
figure
figure
appeared
appeared
neither
in
a
front of
chaotic
him,
divine demon nor
it
a
was the
scarlet
Will of
god
Yellow
spirit.
River.
He could
waved
only
his
be an
right
expert
hand,
from the
and
Supreme
the Yellow
Will's
River
camp.
flew out,
Tacto
directly
catch him.
extinguishing
Joe
the
Marshall
Supreme
said
divine
to the
fire.
only grade
The
1
dark
ultimate
yellow
void
Yellow
Supreme
River
God
water
and his
transformed
team.
into Yellow
Yes, Your
River
Grace.
Chi.
The
Tacto
moment the
said
surrounding
respectfully.
chaotic airflow
Then,
touched the Yellow
he
River Chi,
immediately flew
it
over and
instantly
took the other
disappeared.
party over.
The Will of Yellow River,
Subsequently,
a mere
Joe
Master
Marshall
God,
discovered that this was a
actually
grade
dares to
3
call
Supreme
himself
God
Emperor
realm.
in front of me.
Furthermore,
This
the
is offending
injuries
my
on his
prestige
body
as
were
a Supreme
extremely
Will.
serious,
And you're
if he
actually
did not
protecting
receive
him.
treatment.
The
He
heavenly
was afraid
furnace
that he
Lord
would be
said
in
with an
danger
ugly
of dying.
expression.
Joe
He is a
Marshall did
god
not
spirit
spirit of my
when he
supreme
saw
will
this.
lineage.
He
Even if he
immediately
says that
took
you're
out
a pile of
grade 3
supreme god realm
tea.
divine medicine,
He'll still say
and
that you're
ask
too
Tacto
insulting.
to help him swallow it.
Yellow Rivers
It was
will
just
said
a grade
indifferently.
3 supreme
You
god
and the
realm
Supreme
divine
will are
medicine.
indeed fellows
Any
from the
random
same
master
camp.
god tier
Is it
advanced
your
grade
tradition
god
to
to
offend
offend
the
could
strong?
drop even dozens
Just
of
like
them.
how the Supreme will
Therefore,
offended the
Joe
Lord of
Marshall
Chaos
did not
who
feel
created
any
him?
reluctance at all.
The Heavenly
And
Furnace
not long
Lord
after
wanted
he
to
ate
laugh
the
out of
divine
anger.
medicine,
We are
he
naturally
gradually woke
polite
up.
to our friends.
Who are you?
But there are
He
not
looked
so
at
many
Joe
rules
Marshall in
for our
confusion.
enemies.
In his
The Yellow
impression,
Rivers will set
there did not
coldly.
seem to be
Okay,
the
okay.
existence of the
Then let's
supreme
have a
god.
fight and see
I'm a
who's
god
right.
spirit under the
Then let's
supreme
have a
will.
fight and see
I was
who's
just
right.
arranged by the
Joe
will
Marshall
of Yellow
observed
River
silently
to
from the
save you
side.
injured god
After
spirits
watching for a
who have
moment,
landed in our
his
garrison
expression
area.
changed slightly.
Your injuries are
This
no
was
longer
because
serious.
he discovered that the
You'll
will of
recover
Yellow
with a
River
good rest.
was actually
Joe
unable
Marshall
to deal with
consoled.
this chaos
Thank
god
you, but I
fiend
can't rest.
called Heavenly Furnace
I'm going
Lord.
to keep fighting.
He could not
However,
defeat the Heavenly
this grade
Furnace
3
Lord
supreme
in terms
god
of
realm
combat
did
strength
not
alone.
listen to Joe
This
Marshall.
chaotic
divine demon was obviously better at fighting, flew into the determined expression. The will of the Yellow River was not. Fighting with the chaotic divine demons under the will of Yellow River would be defeated sooner or later. Was solemn when he saw this, but he did not dissuade them. Joe Marshall's expression was calm. He wouldn't be able to last long on the battlefield safety and would be killed by the enemy after all. Why did he insist on joining the battlefield? Yet, he might not be so lucky next time. So easily. Tacto did not understand a way to break out of this situation. However, no need to make wild guesses. In the face of a battle between existences at the supreme willpower realm, yes, your grace, his methods Tacto did not hesitate invincible at the following period of time would be embarrassing in front of the supreme willpower and Crimson Overlord's faction. It seems I am the first clone of my main body to die. Void region, Joe Marshall thought in a self-deprecating manner. However, at that moment, 2 to 3 hours, he suddenly sensed a total of 20 supreme gods were successfully a mighty divine fist stained with countless blood of various colors surged over from afar. After the domineering supreme gods were across the chaotic void, no supreme gods feel fear at the sight of it. Only then did Joe Marshall know that the number 20 was not random. When the will of Yellow River saw this divine come to their territory, a smile finally appeared on his face. The will of war was indeed worthy of being the number one will below Chapter Transcendence. 1559. It had actually rushed over so quickly. 4,000 capital units his expectations. 2. Joe Marshall and just after the 20 supreme gods were completely healed by them. Even though it was just a clone, large amounts of chaotic blood rain suddenly fell from the chaotic void. The heavenly chaotic blood rain landed on Joe Marshall and the others. He released a divine fire and shattered the fist of the will of Joe Marshall and Tacto. Then, he shouted, the other top master god tiers discovered that their cultivation realms and understanding of laws had improved. The will of war had already flown over from afar, even though they did not improve in the chaotic void chaos-colored blood rain. These words were spoken. His black armor was the chaotic blood rain that filled the sky. Clearly, and had a guess. He had experienced a bloody battle. Someone came to verify his guess. The weak Yellow River's will of war descended from the sky and landed in front of Joe Marshall. Different from the urgency they felt when they went to the battlefield, although their auras were weak, and they seemed to have suffered considerable injuries, their expressions were calm, and there was even a smile on their faces. Has the chaos will perished? Joe Marshall asked. Yellow River's will of war smiled and nodded. We've won this war. The Yellow River's will sighed. I'm feeling a bit of an opportunity to get promoted. As the will of war spoke, he disappeared into the chaotic void. It seemed like he had gone into seclusion to digest his insights. Yellow River's will looked at this scene in surprise. When Joe Marshall saw where the will of war had left, he had other thoughts in his mind. It was unknown if the will of war had survived the chaos will in reality without his existence and influence back then. It was unknown if the will of war had survived the chaos will in reality without his existence and influence back then. The will of the Yellow River. Why did Lord Supreme Will and Lord Crimson Overlord join forces to deal with the chaos will? Joe Marshall went straight to the point. Yellow River's will pondered for a second. Finally, after looking at Joe Marshall's face, it slowly said a reply that Joe Marshall had never expected. Do you know the Illusionist clan? I do. Joe Marshall spoke after a second of silence. Could it be because? That's impossible. The Chaos Will would do such a thing. The Illusionist clan is the fundamental enemy of our Chaos universe. However, when the end of the Chaos Will was near, in order to continue his existence, he chose to join the Illusionist clan. Fortunately, Lord Supreme Will and Lord Crimson Overlord discovered this in advance. In order to prevent our universe from becoming a gift from the Chaos Will to the Illusionist clan, the Supreme Will and the Crimson Overlord decided to join forces to deal with the Chaos Will. At this point, the will of Yellow River snorted. As our father, the Chaos Will actually sided with the enemy. In order to please the other party, he even offered our common home to the enemy. We're ashamed to be with each other. He deserved to die today. After saying that, he exhorted. However, it's a shameful thing for our father to join the Illusionist clan. Don't tell anyone. After the war ends, Lord Supreme Will and Lord Crimson Overlord will probably come up with other reasons to cover up the true reason for the death of the Chaos Will. Joe Marshall nodded. So this is the truth behind the death of the Chaos Will. In that case, even the information that the Bodhi Supreme told me was wrong. That's true. If the Supreme Will and the Crimson Overlord had the intention to hide it, it was normal that even the Bodhi Supreme did not know. Then, He took a look at the mission completion notification that had just appeared. System announcement. Time Mission 3, Chaos of Death, exclusive to Supreme Lord Reserve Army, has been completed. Gift of Time has been personally given out by the Supreme Will. The authority of your Supreme Lord Reserve has increased. Note: this mission is a hidden mission. It is unique. After completing this mission, the relevant mission content and mission target will disappear in the ruins of time. A smile appeared on his face. He did not expect this either. He cleared the Supreme Time Ruin with one try. With this experience, it would not be a problem to move around the time ruins every day in the future. This time ruins would become the Blazing Sun Divine Kingdom's resource point for obtaining Chaos Divine treasures. Lord Yellow River, I'm leaving. Joe Marshall suddenly said. Leaving? Yellow Rivers was stunned by Joe Marshall's sudden words. However, he then recalled the identity of the Supreme Will's successor, so he didn't ask further. He nodded and smiled. I'll see you in the future. In the future? Joe Marshall's gaze drifted as he thought of the reality that Yellow Rivers had already died. He fell silent for a second before nodding with a smile. Then, he suddenly asked, Your Excellency, do you know Brother Soul Heaven? Soul Heaven? Yellow Rivers revealed a blank expression. He shook his head and said, No, I don't. Joe Marshall nodded, and did not say anything else. After bidding farewell to the will of Yellow River, he chose to leave the time ruins. Soul Heaven? Yellow Rivers pondered for a few seconds and muttered to himself. Why did he mention this name? Right at that moment, a Master God Tier Advanced Grade God Spirit flew over from afar and landed in front of Yellow Rivers' will. He lowered his head and said respectfully, Lord Yellow Rivers' Lord Supreme Will, asked me to invite you over for a chat. The will of Yellow River nodded. Then, he looked at the Master God Tier in front of him, and suddenly had a thought. Look up. This Master God Tier raised his head and glanced at the will of Yellow River. Then, his gaze subconsciously dodged to the side. What's your name? Yellow Rivers asked for no reason. Soul Heaven. The Master God Tier said nervously. Yellow Rivers was stunned. In a world of seven-colored light, Joe Marshall stood there alone with a calm expression. He knew that this was the time ruins, and was preparing to reveal the true truth of this part of history. It was the same for Nadia's time ruins. Right at that moment, an illusory image appeared in front of him. Scene after scene flashed past. Joe Marshall took a closer look. A moment later, he sighed softly. The true history of the past was not much different from the history of the ruins of time. However, in the ruins of time, because of Joe Marshall, the visitor of time, the will of war, who should have died, unexpectedly survived and obtained the opportunity to advance to the will of war. In real history, the will of war did not communicate with the Supreme Will in advance, and let the Supreme Will save him. In the end, he died at the hands of the Chaos Will. Yellow Rivers was almost killed by the Heavenly Furnace Lord. Fortunately, even though the Yellow Rivers Will's combat strength was insufficient, his self-protection methods were not bad. He risked expending his origin to survive. However, even though he had survived, he would never be able to advance further. Even the strength of his Supreme Will had decreased greatly. Among all the Supreme Wills, his strength could be said to be at the bottom. Joe Marshall shook his head and did not think much about it. The next day, Jojo slowly opened his eyes. He nodded slightly, feeling his evolution. At most, he'll be able to advance to Grade 1 Supreme Sacred Body by night. By then, I can create the Supreme Unique Lord talent on my own. He muttered to himself. A smile slowly appeared on his face. The day had finally come. Then, he didn't think too much about it, and walked out of the Reincarnation Sacred Palace to Mugu. Upon seeing the arrival of His Majesty, Mugu and Wu Xian, who had already arrived, immediately stood up and said respectfully, Greetings, Your Majesty. Your Majesty, I've already finished dealing with all the nest monsters. These are all the spoils of war. Wu Xian said excitedly. Then, he handed the 2 world rings to Jojo. Jojo took it with a smile, and entered it with anticipation. When he saw the treasures inside, he couldn't help but take a deep breath before a smile appeared on his face. Among the 2 world rings, one of them contained 1,000 capital units, Supreme God Realm Soldier Recruitment Books, and 1,000 capital units, Supreme Holy Mage God Recruitment Books. The other world ring contained 1,000 capital units, Supreme God Realm Soldier Class Change Certificate, and 1,000 capital units, Supreme Holy Mage God Class Change Certificate. That's right. He smiled and muttered to himself. This was a total of 4,000 capital units recruitment books and class change certificates. He only had around 2,000 capital units soldiers under his command. The gains from the Scarlet Brood Mother had doubled his overall military strength. The Scarlet Brood Mother is really getting stronger. Zhou sighed. Chapter 1560, 2 Legendary Dragons. Heavenly Realm Dragon God. Sacred Sound Dragon God. Zhou handed the world ring, containing the class change certificate, to the other party. Legion Commander Wu. As usual, you should find reserve recruits to change your profession. This emperor will go to the Gate of Summoning to recruit new recruits. He said. Yes, Your Majesty. Wu Xian said respectfully. Zhou nodded. Then Wu Xian took his leave. Zhou watched as the other party left. Currently, the number of soldiers in the Blazing Sun Divine Kingdom, who needed to advance to the Supreme Soldier type every day, had already reached an astonishing 2,000 capital units. The human race had long been unable to meet the demand of such a huge population for the class change certificate. Therefore, the additional class change certificate had already begun to be changed by the other races in the Blazing Sun Divine Kingdom. It was fine if there were not enough humans. There were many other people of foreign races. They could completely satisfy the Blazing Sun Divine Kingdom's job change requirements. In any case, they were all citizens of the Blazing Sun Divine Kingdom. He could give them to anyone. He didn't think too much about it. After he left the Shepherd's Valley residence, he flew in the direction of the Gate of Summoning. In front of the Gate of Summoning, he came directly to the Gate of Summoning. He first called for an eternal battleship of the Master God tier advance grade, then threw all the recruitment books in. Finally, he spent 100 intermediate true God tier divine crystals to recruit all of them in one go and arrange them on this eternal battleship. Then, he looked over. A total of 400 capital units extraordinary tier troops were neatly arranged in the inner world of the eternal battleship. Zhou looked at their heroic appearances and nodded in satisfaction. Then, he got Zero to lead the 2,000 capital units army to look for Zhou Marshal. Then, he opened the original Dragon Abyss interface of the Gate of Summoning and spent 100 Master God tier elementary grade divine crystals to summon 66,666,600 pure-blooded dragons. He also placed them on the Eternal Mothership. Then, he carefully observed these dragons and was surprised to discover that there were 2 pure-blooded dragons among them. Zhou's eyes lit up and showed. The 10% chance of summoning 2 legendary dragons had been triggered. He looked over carefully. One of the 2 legendary dragons had a bright purple body and 2 purple vortexes in his eyes. When he let out a low dragon roar, the surrounding space and time would faintly tremble. It was the legendary dragon, the Sacred Sound Divine Dragon. This was a legendary dragon who had become a Master God tier with the Law of Sound. He was famous even among all the legendary dragons. The other legendary dragon was completely white, with golden patterns flowing on its skin. It had 36 pairs of pure white dragon wings on its back, and a golden dragon crown on its head. It looked extraordinary and ethereal. It was the legendary dragon, the Heavenly Realm Dragon God. It's actually the Heavenly Realm Dragon God. Zhou wasn't too surprised to see the divine dragon, but when he saw the Heavenly Realm Dragon God, he couldn't help but be surprised. This Heavenly Realm Dragon God was also known as the Dragon God of Salvation. It was said to be the rarest legendary dragon among all the dragons. Even other legendary dragons would find it extremely difficult to find this Heavenly Realm Dragon God. Rumors. The Heavenly Realm Dragon God would only appear when the dragons were in danger of extermination. Once it appeared, it would save the dragons from danger. The reason why he said that was because the heavenly realm dragon god possessed an extremely rare resurrection ability. He could easily resurrect dragons, even legendary dragons. However, apart from its resurrection ability, the heavenly realm dragon god had no other abilities. Therefore, every time the dragons were in danger, the heavenly realm dragon god would wake up from the mysterious dragon realm and come to the main world. It would revive the powerful dragons who had already died, and even the legendary dragons, allowing the dragons to return to their peak. Even the first venerable, the primordial dragon, did not possess the power to revive the dragon race. It was precisely because of the existence of the heavenly realm dragon god that even though the dragon race had experienced the danger of extermination several times, and there were even 3 top-notch bloodline races that had participated in the crisis, the dragon race had survived them one by one. As a result, there was a rumor in the myriad worlds. If you want to completely exterminate the dragons, you must first exterminate the heavenly realm dragon god. If the heavenly dragon is not dead, the dragon clan will not be destroyed. Hence, the heavenly realm dragon god had a rather sacred status among the dragons. Zhou looked at the other party. Out of curiosity, he teleported the other party and the sacred sound divine dragon over with a thought. "Greetings, your majesty." The sacred sound divine dragon, Idol said respectfully. The heavenly realm dragon god said the same thing. They looked at Zhou with warm and friendly eyes. As legendary dragons, they could also feel the almost unbelievably rich legendary dragon bloodline in their emperor. Not to mention he himself, even the first venerable, the ancestor of the dragon race, might not be able to compare to the purity and nobility of such a legendary dragon bloodline. Therefore, if Zhou were to look at the loyalty of Ashley and Idol at this moment, he would be surprised to discover that their loyalty was at the Holy Spirit level. Ashley, as the dragon god of salvation of the dragon race, you actually came to this emperor's place. Did you have a premonition that the dragon race would welcome a calamity? Zhou asked with concern. Now the dragon race had long become an indispensable part of the blazing sun god race. They could even be considered one of the direct descendants of the blazing sun divine kingdom. Therefore, Zhou was naturally very concerned about the safety of the dragon race. Idol also looked at Ashley nervously. As one of the legendary dragons, he naturally knew the uniqueness of Ashley's identity. Therefore, he was also very nervous, afraid that he would hear something bad about the future from Ashley. However, Ashley shook its head in confusion after hearing Zhou's words. "Your Majesty, I'm not too sure either. I was sleeping in the dragon realm. I didn't sense any danger from the dragons. I only vaguely felt a summoning. Then, I subconsciously responded to the summoning and came here." Zhou. The original dragon abyss was pretty domineering. This dragon was sleeping, but it actually got pulled over. However, it was fine as long as the dragons were fine. Idol also heaved a sigh of relief at the side. It turned out to have experienced the same situation as it. Then it is fine. Can you only resurrect dragons? Or can you resurrect any life form? Zhou asked curiously. "Your Majesty, I can only revive the dragons and not other life forms. However, resurrecting the dragons will only consume divine power. Unlike the gods of life and death, it requires faith divine crystals." Ashley said. Zhou nodded. That was not bad. Then, he chatted with Ashley and Idol for a while before telling them the location of the dragon's encampment and asking them to meet up with the other dragons. Then, he spent another 100 Master God tier elementary grade divine crystals to recruit today's new subjects. In the end, he had recruited more than 261 billion new subjects with the strength of extraordinary tier advanced grade today. He had summoned more than 200 million new subjects than usual. This naturally included the 14 Master God tier elementary grade God spirits. Zhou looked at the 14 Master God tier elementary grade God spirits and smiled. They were all free clan protecting experts. If he filmed it and sent it to the Lord channel and the Battle channel, those people of foreign races would probably be envious. Chapter 1561. 6,000 Capital Units Army. Following that, Zhou made another trip to the Jade Capital Immortal Mountain. He spent 1,000 capital units on Summer Divine Crystals, and summoned the 100 capital units Heavenly Soldiers, Heavenly Generals, and Heavenly Venerates. And not long after he finished recruiting, boom boom, boom boom boom. A total of 1,112 nomological pillars of various colors soared into the sky from the direction of the Reincarnation Sacred Palace. Zhou nodded slightly when he saw this. These were the true gods who had entered the Reincarnation Sacred Palace yesterday, and were preparing to break through. They had officially broken through, and reached the Master God tier realm. Not bad, not bad. More than 1,000 Master Gods broke through at once. In the myriad worlds, since ancient times, and even in the future, it would probably be very difficult for other Lord factions to break his record. At the same time, the gods of the myriad worlds naturally saw the 1,112 nomological lights. When they saw this scene, they could not help but gape. More than 1,000 newly advanced Master Gods were actually born on the same day. It simply shocked the god spirits. I suddenly feel that Lord Common People's Regal is the new hope of our supreme great cosmos. A god spirit suddenly said. The other gods who were secretly communicating with each other also agreed, and communicated with each other. Yesterday, there were more than 700 new Master God tiers. Today, there are more than 1,000 new Master God tiers. I have a feeling that there will only be more new Master God tiers tomorrow. If Master God tier can advance so easily, how far can the advancement of Supreme Gods be? Now there are only more than 10,000 Supreme Gods in the entire Supreme Great Cosmos. Perhaps in the future, our Supreme Great Cosmos will give birth to more Supreme Gods, because of your Excellency Common People's Regal, or even Supreme Will level existences. The Supreme Will is a little too much, but it should be possible to give birth to more Supreme Gods. If our Supreme Great Cosmos has more Supreme Gods, it will be extremely beneficial to the war with the Crimson Overlord and the illusionary race. In that case, Your Excellency Common People's Regal might really be the hope and future of our Supreme Great Cosmos. As expected of the Supreme Lord's 4th Reserve Army personally chosen by the Supreme Will. Everything he does is so unbelievable. I feel that he is no longer inferior to the other Supreme Lord's Reserve Army. That's too early to say. Young God, you haven't experienced that era back then, and don't know how powerful those 3 Supreme Lord Reserve Army are. No matter what, the Supreme Will is awesome, the god spirits discussed animatedly. At this moment, even the other Supreme Lord Reserve Army subordinates could not say anything. Over 1,000 Master Gods advanced on the same day. Even other Supreme Lord Reserve armies had never achieved such an achievement. At the same time, Zhou waited for more than half an hour before the phenomenon of the Master God's advancement gradually dissipated. After the advancement phenomena dissipated, 550 light pillars of various laws flew out of the Reincarnation Sacred Palace and quickly landed around Zhou, revealing their figures. It was the 11-12 Master Gods who had just advanced. They immediately knelt down and said respectfully to Zhou, "Greetings, Your Majesty. Thank you for your nurturing, Your Majesty. We didn't let Your Majesty down, and have all successfully advanced to become Master God tier elementary grade God spirits." Not bad. Zhou smiled and nodded. As usual, don't be late for tonight's promotion ceremony. This emperor will celebrate with you. Yes, Your Majesty. The newly advanced Master God tiers agreed excitedly. At the same time, Zhou Manage, who was dealing with administrative matters in the shrine, looked speechlessly in Zhou's direction. Then, he lowered his head and muttered as he dealt with administrative matters. You make it sound so nice. But in the end, it's still you who goes into seclusion to cultivate. I'll go drink for you. My life is so bitter. I can't rest for a moment. Zhou chatted with them for a while before rewarding each of them with a set of elementary grade divine artifacts that were suitable for them. Then, he got them to look for Zheng Yuanqi, to collect their jobs, and worshipped Master God salaries. After they left, Zhou calculated the strength of his main combat army, including the 4,000 new recruits from the capital units, 66,666,666,000 pure-blooded dragons, 100 heavenly soldiers from the capital units, and 1,112 new Master God tiers. In addition, he had recruited 5 Supreme Gods and 15 Master Gods from the chaotic secret realm. The troops under him had already reached 6,143 capital units, 7, 213, 432, 648, 8253 soldiers, 43,536,310,050 God spirits, 756,323,594 true gods, 26,580 Master Gods and 15 Supreme Gods. Zhou nodded in satisfaction. A total of 6,000 soldiers from the capital units. Moreover, it was an army of 6,000 capital units, with the lowest extraordinary tier advance grade. This was not weak among all the Supreme Gods and forces below the Supreme God level in the myriad worlds. And tomorrow, his army would officially break through to the Gai unit. A Gai unit troop. This was already the backbone of the Supreme God forces. As for the forces of Lord of 10,000 Evils, they were not considered top forces among all the Supreme God forces. It was only because he had a special status that he was more famous among the Supreme Gods. He stopped thinking about it and went to the Lord shop to buy today's goods. Then, he returned to the Reincarnation Sacred Palace to continue cultivating. He had to reach the Grade 1 Supreme Sacred Body as soon as possible. This way, among the Supreme Gods, he would basically not encounter any opponents that were a threat to him. As for the existence of the Supreme Will Realm, it was still a threat to the Grade 1 Supreme Sacred Body. The Supreme Will State and Supreme God State were on completely different levels after all. A Supreme Will State expert could easily kill a top Supreme God with a thought. At the same time, in the ultimate void battlefield, Zhou Fight had already assembled his army and was waiting for Lord of 10,000 Evils to arrive. Soon, the Lord of 10,000 Evils led an army over. Zhou Fight looked over. Then, he realized that he was leading a lot more God spirits today than yesterday. There were nearly 20 billion ordinary God spirits. There were 300 million true gods. There were more than 15,000 Master Gods. As for Supreme Gods, there were 10 of them. Zhou Fight clicked his tongue. It seemed that his demon lord had hidden his strength yesterday. He wondered if the current military strength was his entire military strength. At this moment, the Lord of 10,000 Evils had already flown in front of Zhou Fight. Brother Common People's Regal. I've arrived with my army. Which one are we playing today? Which one are we playing today? Perhaps it was because he had been invigorated by the victories of the past 2 days. He sounded especially confident. Brother Demon Lord, you've brought enough God spirits with you today. Zhou Fight did not answer and smiled. Lord of 10,000 Evils smiled. In case of emergencies. Yesterday, he had wanted to bring only a large portion of his troops to help Zhou Fight, but in the end, he had almost lost him. After learning his lesson, he brought over most of his troops this time. Zhou Fight nodded and did not say anything else. Instead, he said, "Today my targets are the Lotus Flame Main City and the Fire Poison City. It's these 2 main cities." The Lord of 10,000 Evils' expression turned solemn. "They're all tough bones. That's what I want," Zhou Fight said calmly. Chapter 1562, Battle starts. 1. The Lord of 10,000 Evils nodded. He would do whatever Zhou Fight said now that he had Zhou Fight as the leader in the war. As for what would happen if he failed. Anyway, as the 3rd Reserve Army of the Supreme Lord, he had a trump card that was enough to protect him. He was not afraid of losing him. At this moment, the armies of both sides had already gathered. Seeing this, Zhou Fight did not waste any more time. He immediately let the army board the Eternal Mothership and flew towards the Lotus Flame War territories with Lord of 10,000 Evils' Demon Lord. As for the Lord of 10,000 Evils and him, they passed through the ultimate void through the Dragon God of all life and rushed to the Lotus Flame Main City. Lotus Flame Main City. When Zhou Fight and Lord of 10,000 Evils arrived on the Dragon God of all life, The two gods immediately concealed their existence. Then, Lord of 10,000 Evils looked at the dragon god of all life, and could not help but sigh enviously. Brother Common People's Regal, your dragon god of all life is indeed convenient in this ultimate void battlefield. To be honest, if not for the fact that Zhou Fight was his ally, Lord of 10,000 Evils would have snatched this dragon god of all life. How far was this Lotus Flame main city from their base planet? However, with the dragon god of all life around, they arrived at their destination in less than a moment. How could Lord of 10,000 Evils not be envious? This was too useful on the battlefield. Zhou Fight smiled and did not say anything. Then, they looked at the Lotus Flame main city in the distance. The Lotus Flame main city in the distance looked ordinary and quiet, like an ordinary Class 3 Ultimate Void main city. However, the more this was the case, the more Zhou Fight and Lord of 10,000 Evils felt that there was an inexplicable danger. The two god spirits looked at each other. Then Lord of 10,000 Evils said, Brother Common People's Regal, let's wait for the army to arrive. Okay. Zhou Marshal nodded. Then, the two of them took out the Lord chess and began to play in the ultimate void. Lord of 10,000 Evils was playing with relish. It was obvious that he was an old player. I can't compare to you in the ultimate void battlefield, but how can I lose in chess? The Lord of 10,000 Evils thought. As for Zhou Marshal, he had been in the Supreme Continent for a long time, and had dabbled in such paper chess. Even though his skills were not as profound as Lord of 10,000 Evils, he could still fight back and forth with the other party. While playing chess with Lord of 10,000 Evils, Zhou Marshal diverted a portion of his attention, and could not help but look at the spoils of war in his #1 treasure vault. He couldn't help but often look at these loots since yesterday. Even today when he was free, he would still occasionally take a second look. These loots were none other than the inheritance of the Heavenly Furnace Lord's Supreme Will Realm. Yes, yesterday, in the ruins of time, even though Zhou Marshal had only participated in the battle between the Will of Yellow River and the Heavenly Furnace Lord by assisting, after the Heavenly Furnace Lord was killed, he still obtained the Book of the God Spirit from the Heavenly Furnace Lord when he extracted his corpse. To be precise, it should be the Will Canon. He was confirmed that the Heavenly Furnace Lord's Supreme Will inheritance was recorded in this Will Canon after verification by Zhou Marshal. This is a Supreme Will Realm inheritance, Zhou Fight exclaimed in his heart. At the same time, he felt like he had been hit on the head by luck. Some time ago, he was still hesitating if he should take the risk to join the competition for the Yellow River's Will inheritance. Now, he had a Supreme Will Realm legacy. Moreover, this Supreme Will Realm inheritance was even stronger than the inheritance of the Yellow River's will. In the ruins of time, if the Will of War did not come, the Heavenly Furnace Lord could rely on his supreme divine fire to burn the will of the Yellow River alone, and severely injure it after all. In terms of preciousness, his inheritance was even more precious than the inheritance of the Yellow River's will. However, this way, a problem appeared in his mind. Since I've already obtained a Supreme Will Realm inheritance, I wonder if my main body still wants to continue participating in the battle for the inheritance of the Yellow River's will? Zhou Fight began to think for his main body. While the main body had already promised the reincarnation will to make a trip, if he temporarily refused to go on the grounds of insufficient ability, the reincarnation will might be unhappy, but it should understand the main body's choice. He was already a Supreme Lord Reserve Army, and had an even stronger inheritance of the Supreme Will in hand. There was no need for him to take the risk to fight for another inheritance of the Supreme Will. However, after thinking for a while, Zhou Fight felt that his main body would probably still fight for the inheritance of the Yellow River's will. There were two reasons. First, the main body has the ability to clone. He can completely let the clone bring his subordinates to the Yellow River realm to fight for the Yellow River inheritance. This way, the probability of encountering danger can be minimized. Even if he really encounters danger when fighting for the will inheritance, at most, the clone will die and not implicate the main body. With this premise, his main body should dare to try to fight for the inheritance of the Yellow River's will. Secondly, His main body had the premier heart. It was only a matter of time before he advanced to the limit of the will divine transformation realm. At that time, his main body would have to consider how to advance to the supreme will realm. The inheritance of the supreme will realm could greatly help the main body understand this realm and increase the foundation of the main Bodhis realm. If 2 supreme will realm inheritances were absorbed by the main body, the probability of the main body advancing to the supreme will realm in the future would definitely be higher. Hence, Zhou Fight felt that there was a high chance that his main body would go. As for the supreme will realm inheritance in his hand, his main body would use it after advancing to the grade 1 supreme sacred body. Chapter 1563, Battle starts. 2. As for why he did not use it immediately, it was because the supreme will realm inheritance was too high level. Therefore, even if he only absorbed the inheritance inside, there was a certain risk. If he was not careful, he might be contaminated by the inheritance content inside and lose his will, becoming a will substitute of the inheritor. However, if Zhou had a grade 1 supreme sacred body, he would not be afraid of these risks. He would be able to absorb the will inheritance of the heavenly furnace lord without worry. Then, he sensed the lower limit of the human race's potential. Then he smiled. Low-tier deity level intermediate grade. Now, with the help of 501 new master god tiers of the human race, the potential of the blazing sun god race had shockingly advanced from the low-tier deity level elementary grade to the low-tier deity level intermediate grade. Low-tier deity level intermediate grade, not bad. Zhou Marshall nodded in his heart. Then, he sensed how many new master gods the blazing sun god race needed to advance from the lower limit of the low-tier deity level intermediate grade to the lower limit of the low-tier deity level advanced grade. The answer was 1,000 of them. As for the remaining newly promoted master god tiers under him, there was only one. In other words, he still needed 999 new master god tiers to raise the lower limit of the blazing sun god race's potential. As long as I maintain the intensity of yesterday's battle, in at most 2 days, I can raise the lower limit of the blazing sun god race's potential to the low-tier deity level advanced grade. Zhou Fight thought to himself. Right at that moment, the Lord of 10,000 Evils, who was opposite Zhou Fight, could not help but smile as he looked at the card that he had already gained the upper hand. He was about to win this game of cards. At this moment, Zhou Fight also came back to his senses and took a look at his hand card. Then, he looked at the sky inadvertently and said, "Our army is on its way. I'm done. Next time, I'll fight a fierce battle with Brother Demon Lord." After saying that, he threw the remaining cards on the table. The Lord of 10,000 Evils was stunned when he saw this scene. He looked up at the sky. Sure enough, they saw the Eternal Mothership and the Demon Lord flying towards them from the ultimate void in the distance. Lord of 10,000 Evils could not help but grit his teeth gloomily. "I'm so unlucky. The army arrived when I was just about to win. Can't you guys come later? Would a few minutes hurt?" Even though he was depressed, the Lord of 10,000 Evils wasn't someone who didn't know the severity of the matter. He stood up, put away the card table, and flew towards the cosmic battleship with Zhou Zhan. At the same time, the ultimate void race army of the Lotus Flame main city also discovered the Eternal Space Carrier and the Demon Lord. They immediately gathered their army in the main city and confronted Zhou Fight and Lord of 10,000 Evil's army from 4 to 5 light years away. They seemed to have been prepared. Lord of 10,000 Evils said when he saw this scene. Zhou Fight nodded. He was not surprised. The day before yesterday, they had led the army to Wanlong City in advance and took the initiative to fight the other party after all. The other party must have known about this and was only on guard now. Right at that moment, 2 ultimate void supreme gods flew out of the Lotus Flame main city. One of them had a body like a red jade lotus flower and was burning with scarlet divine flames. It was the city lord of the Lotus Flame main city, the grade 4 ultimate void supreme god, Lotus Flame. The other supreme god, who was in the form of a giant worm and exuded a pale green poisonous gas, was the city lord of the Fire Poison main city, the Grade 4 Ultimate Void Supreme God, Fire Poison, Common People's Regal, Lord of 10,000 Evils. We've been waiting for you. Lotus Flame shouted. You dare to take the initiative to attack our Ultimate Void base? Today is the day you die. When you die, the Ultimate Void base that you previously occupied will return to our hands one by one. The entire Ultimate Void battlefield will also completely belong to our Void Emperor, Your Excellency. Fire Poison said coldly. That's a lot of crap, Zhou Fight said coldly. Then, he directly ordered everyone attack. Attack! Destroy this Lotus Flame main city. Lord of 10,000 Evils also gave the order loudly. As soon as he finished speaking, Zhou Fight's main combat army, and Lord of 10,000 Evils army, began to attack Lotus Flame main city. The Supreme God Realm soldier relied on its invincible divine body to fly at the front of the army. The Supreme Holy Mage God began to prepare his Supreme Divine Technique to attack the Lotus Flame main city in the distance. The Heavenly Soldiers and Heavenly Generals also quickly formed an array. Under the lead of the Heavenly Venerates, they charged towards the Lotus Flame main city. Roar! Trillions of dragon gods, and a few main god-tier legendary dragons opened their dragon mouths and spewed out endless dragon breath of various colors to burn this void main city. The ultimate evil spirits of the 1,000 Evil Army did not fall behind at all. Evil spirit law skills were released from their hands to attack the ultimate Void Army on the Lotus Flame main city, confusing them and making them kill each other. In addition, 19 Supreme Gods floated above the army and began to brew and release powerful Supreme God-level law skills, wanting to shatter the Lotus Flame main city. Zhou Fight and Lord of 10,000 Evils also took out various race divine artifacts to stimulate their effects, allowing them to be enhanced on their own army and increase their combat strength. As for the Son of Destiny, Zhou Fight was not in a hurry to use it. This was because he had already learned from Bodhi Supreme that the other party had long known of his insight defection methods and had long prepared a counterattack. He planned to use the Son of Destiny after the other party's counterattack was used up or snatched away. At the same time, just as Zhou Fight and Lord of 10,000 Evil's subordinates were attacking the Lotus Flame main city. Chapter 1564. Battle starts. 3. The Lotus Flame Supreme God and the Fire Poison Supreme God also began to use their respective methods. The Lotus Flame Supreme God first activated the Grade 3 Supreme God Realm Defense Facility of the Lotus Flame main city, Fire Lotus Domain. Flame lotus flowers appeared out of thin air. They radiated an area of more than 1,000 square light years. They constantly rotated and burned, attacking the Blazing Sun Divine Kingdom's God Spirit Army and the 1,000 Evil Army's God Spirit Army that were deep inside. Then, the Fire Poison's Ultimate Void Supreme God also took out a small pure white bottle. He carefully opened the cork of the bottle and threw it into the sky. The pure white bottle expanded in the wind. Immediately after, rolling green poisonous fog spewed out. The ultimate supreme god of the fire poison took out a long snow-white fan and flapped it hard at the green poisonous fog. The rolling green poisonous fog was instantly blown away. In less than a moment, it spread in an area of thousands of square light years and began to poison the Blazing Sun Divine Kingdom's God Spirit Army and the 1,000 Evil Army's God Spirit Army. The Supreme God Realm Soldiers and Supreme Holy Mage Gods of the Blazing Sun Divine Kingdom were fine. Supreme God Realm Soldiers had absolute immunity, immortality, extreme vitality, infinite rebirth, and other Supreme Soldier-type talents. Even if the methods used by the Supreme Gods of Fire Lotus and Fire Poison were also Supreme God-level methods, they were not much of a threat to the Supreme God Realm Soldiers. As for the Supreme Holy Mage God itself, it also grasped a self-protection Supreme Divine Technique that was immune to or reduced these external injuries, so there were not many casualties. They even had the strength to help the Dragon God and the legendary dragon race avoid the invasion of these fire lotuses and poisonous fog. As for the Heavenly Soldiers, Heavenly Generals, and Heavenly Venerates, they had the protection of array formations, so they were not afraid of the flames and poisonous fog. On the other hand, the ultimate evil spirit of the Thousand Evil Army was in a bad situation. Even though the ultimate evil spirit was also a supreme soldier type, there were also differences in the supreme soldier type, and the ultimate evil spirit was a slightly above average supreme soldier type. Even though this was already not bad, it was far inferior to the supreme god realm soldier and the supreme holy mage god. In addition, the ultimate evil spirits were best at mind and will attacks, while their defense was their weakness. Therefore, the ultimate evil spirit army quickly suffered casualties in the face of the fire lotus and poisonous fog. However, they were not afraid of retreating. Instead, they released their mental spells even more crazily and attacked the ultimate void army of the Lotus Flame main city. For a moment, more ultimate void god spirits died at the hands of the ultimate evil spirits. Lord of 10,000 Evils looked at this scene calmly, without much fluctuation in his heart. As long as it was a war, there would be casualties. This was a very normal thing. Moreover, the common people's regal had promised that he would help resurrect his subordinates, so he was not afraid of casualties. So what if he died? As long as he had to bring away the god spirits of the ultimate void camp before he died, he would not lose out. If he killed many ultimate void god spirits, he might even profit. After the Lotus Flame Supreme God and the Fire Poison Supreme God used their respective methods, the army in the Lotus Flame main city also began to release law skills to attack the Blazing Sun Divine Kingdom's army and the Thousand Evil army. At this moment, with every minute and second, tens of thousands, or even more god spirits from both sides died on the battlefield. After death, the subsequent gods swarmed over and took over the position of the dead gods to continue attacking the enemy. This cycle went on and on. The war had just begun, but it had already entered the most tragic and white-hot stage. Chapter 1565. One-on-one battle. Zhou Fight and Lord of 10,000 Evils watched this scene calmly. At this moment, the Lotus Flame Supreme God and the Fire Poison Supreme God suddenly flew out of the Lotus Flame main city. They looked at Zhou Fight and Lord of 10,000 Evils before the Lotus Flame Supreme God shouted, "Common people's regal, Lord of 10,000 Evils. Do you have the guts to fight us? Why wouldn't I dare?" The Lord of 10,000 Evils snorted when he saw this. He wasn't afraid of battle. He extended his right hand, and a black gold lotus lamp appeared out of thin air. It slowly spun in his palm. At the same time, a sharp black gold needle circled the black gold lotus lamp and autobiographed itself. Inadvertently, it flickered with a golden edge. This was Lord of 10,000 Evils' intrinsic divine artifact. At the same time, it was also an enhanceable race divine artifact called the Golden Lotus Divine Lamp. It was both offensive and defensive. It was one of the divine artifacts that he liked to use. Zhou Fight also took out the Xian Yuan divine sword calmly and pointed the tip at the Lotus Flame Supreme God. "Brother common people's regal, be careful. These ultimate void race people have always liked to play dirty. Remember to be on guard." Even though Lord of 10,000 Evils agreed readily on the surface, he secretly sent a voice transmission to Zhou Fight. The Lord of 10,000 Evils didn't want to fight to begin with, but since the other party had taken the initiative to jump out and ask for a battle, in order not to affect his morale, he could only accept the battle. Of course, most importantly, although he didn't want to fight, it didn't mean that he was afraid of him. In terms of one-on-one combat, Lord of 10,000 Evils was confident that he was not inferior to any supreme god. The supreme god of the Heavenly Blade was an exception. As Zhou's main battle avatar, Zhou Fight was naturally not afraid of the other party. He responded to Lord of 10,000 Evils. Then, without any nonsense, he flew towards the supreme god of Lotus Flame and Fire Poison with Lord of 10,000 Evils. When the Lotus Flame Supreme God and the Fire Poison Supreme God saw this, they avoided the battlefield and flew into the ultimate void further away. This was exactly what Zhou Fight and Lord of 10,000 Evils thought. Once they, who had the combat power of a grade 4 Supreme God, fought with all their might without any worries, the area of the battle would be too large. It was very easy for them to hurt their own people and stay away from the battlefield. Finding another place to fight was the right choice. As for traps and whatnot, Zhou Fight and Lord of 10,000 Evils were very confident in themselves, so they were not too worried. Therefore, they immediately chased after him. Soon, they arrived at an ultimate void that allowed them to fight to their heart's content. Fire poison. I haven't forgotten about the war 6,900 years ago, when you set up the poisonous fog behind our army. Today I'm going to avenge my billion god spirit army. Lord of 10,000 Evils looked at the fire poison supreme god coldly. His eyes filled with hatred. You won't be able to take revenge, but I can promise you that I'll send you to meet your billion dead god spirit army. The fire poison supreme god laughed out loud. The Lord of 10,000 Evils did not say anything else. He held the golden lotus divine lamp and rushed towards the fire poison supreme god. The fire poison supreme god also held his fire poison bottle and charged at Lord of 10,000 Evils. The two of them quickly engaged in an intense battle, each move taking the enemy's life. Zhou Fight was also fighting the Lotus Flame Supreme God with the Xianyuan Divine Sword. As a Grade 4 Supreme God, the Lotus Flame Supreme God had a total of 5 Supreme Divine Artifacts on her. Her combat strength was considered top-notch among the Grade 4 Supreme Gods. In the past, Zhou Fight might not have been able to defeat the other party. However, recently, he had many more Supreme Gods under him, especially through the gains from the Sun of Destiny and the Time Ruins. He also had 2 more Grade 4 Supreme Gods under him. With the augmentation of the King, these 2 Level 4 Supreme Gods, in addition to the strength of the other 11 Supreme Gods, were all augmented on Zhou Fight alone. This made his strength instantly rise to the level of a peak Grade 4 Supreme God, coupled with the enhancement of the Supreme Divine Artifacts and Racial Divine Artifacts on him. It was no exaggeration to say that among the Supreme Gods, other than the Supreme God of the Heavenly Blade, who had comprehended the Supreme Will, the current Zhou Fight was no longer afraid of any god spirit below the quasi-supreme will. Therefore, not long after the battle between the Lotus Flame Supreme God and Zhou Zhan, they shockingly discovered something. That was that he, a genuine top Grade 4 Supreme God, was actually unable to defeat this pseudo-Grade 4 Supreme God in a head-on battle. Impossible! The Supreme God of Lotus Flame roared angrily and turned into a fire lotus to escape Zhou Fight's continuous sword attack. Then, he pointed into the distance. Grade 4 Supreme God Law Skill, Fury Flame Lotus. This law skill was one of the famous law skills of the Lotus Flame Supreme God. It could turn the enemy into an incomparably huge flame red lotus that would explode 10 seconds later. The stronger the enemy was, the greater the power of the explosion, and the higher the damage to the enemy. A pseudo-Grade 4 Supreme God like Zhou Fight would definitely die once he exploded. Zhou Fight also realized that he had become a blazing flame red lotus. He sensed the increasingly explosive fire energy in his body and knew that if he didn't stop it, he would quickly self-destruct and die. However, Zhou Fight's expression was still cold even after knowing this situation. It was impossible to tell that he was already in danger. All the land in the world belongs to the king. A cold voice came from Zhou Fight and resounded throughout the ultimate void. In the next second, boom, the 9-colored nomological domain descended into the ultimate void. The radius of thousands of square light years was covered by this 9-colored domain. In this 9-colored nomological domain, the Supreme God of Lotus Flame and the Supreme God of Fire Poison, who was fighting with Lord of 10,000 Evils, even had the illusion that the ultimate void that they was currently in did not seem to be a domain that they was familiar with, but an unfamiliar domain, or rather, someone else's territory, the territory that belonged to the common people's regal. At this moment, the Lotus Flame Supreme God also looked at Zhou Fight in shock. This was because he was shocked to discover that when the 9-colored nomological domain descended, Zhou Fight, who had already turned into a flaming lotus flower, quickly returned to normal. In less than a second, he returned to his original appearance. How is this possible? Why is his nomological skill so much stronger than mine in terms of priority? His main body is clearly a master god who has just risen. How can the nomological path he has comprehended be so much stronger than mine? The Lotus Flame Supreme God was in disbelief. He had only seen 3 existences that could comprehend such a high-priority nomological technique. He was personally confirmed by Your Excellency, the Void Emperor, as a top supreme god with the potential to advance to the quasi-supreme will level in the future. He was already a supreme god with a quasi-supreme will. There were also existences at the supreme will realm, which meant the common people's regal that he was facing at this moment would at least become a quasi-supreme will in the future. At this moment, he recalled the scene where he had cultivated diligently for countless years without touching the threshold of a quasi-supreme will. He then thought of the guy opposite him. He had cultivated to his current level in such a short period of time, and his future was limitless. He couldn't help but burn with jealousy at the thought of this. Supreme Lord Reserve Army? Genius, right? I just want to see if you can block this. He stretched out his right hand and saw a blue granular fog appear in his hand. Chapter 1566. The Remains of the Supreme Will Realm. The Outbreak of the Lord of 10,000 Evils. As soon as this blue granular fog appeared, the surrounding ultimate void froze. At the same time, an extremely terrifying and oppressive aura emitted from this blue particle-shaped strange object, causing Zhou Feit's expression to change slightly. Even Lord of 10,000 Evils and the fire-poison supreme god, who were fighting far away, could not help but be shocked. Then they looked at the Lotus Flame Supreme God. This is... When the Lord of 10,000 Evils saw this blue granular fog, his expression instantly changed drastically. Brother Common People's regal run, he roared. The fire-poison supreme god was also very surprised. Lotus Flame actually took this out. He is really generous. However, if we can kill the reserve army of the Supreme Lord, Common People's regal, perhaps Your Excellency will reward him with even more precious treasures. It's not a loss. At the thought of this, the fire-poison supreme god understood him, and even envied him. He did not have any similar treasures in his hands. Otherwise, he would definitely use them on Lord of 10,000 Evils like the Lotus Flame Supreme God. At the same time, Zhou Feit also looked at the blue particle-shaped fog in the fire-poison supreme god's hand with a solemn expression. The remains of a supreme will realm will. He said. He had just entered the ruins of the chaos of death yesterday, and had seen many battles of the supreme will realm. So he was naturally familiar with the aura of the supreme will realm. Therefore, when the Lotus Flame Supreme God took out this blue granular fog, he recognized it at a glance. You actually know him? When the Lotus Flame Supreme God saw that Zhou Feit actually recognized the treasure in his hand, he could not help but be surprised. Even the other supreme gods rarely knew about the origin of the supreme treasure in his hand. Only friends like the supreme god of fire poison and the supreme will realm knew what it was. This was the remains of a supreme will that came from a supreme will realm existence. Even if this piece of wreckage was only 1 in a billion of the existence of the fallen supreme will realm, it was not something the supreme god could compare to. The supreme will and the supreme god were already 2 completely different species after all. With a thought, the supreme will could easily kill a top grade 4 supreme god. Even though the remains of this supreme will were far inferior to a true supreme will realm existence, it was still easy to kill Zhou Feit. Common People's regal, it's your honor to die in the hands of this treasure of mine. I'll use it to kill you. You can rest in peace after you die. The Lotus Flame Supreme God looked at the remains of the Supreme Will Realm in his hand with pity, and then looked at Zhou Feit with a pleased expression. With that, he suddenly threw the remains of the Supreme Will into the sky. In the next second, after this ball of blue granular fog was thrown into the air, it suddenly spread out and formed a huge blue creature. This huge blue creature emitted the terrifying aura of a Supreme Will Realm expert. He had 3 eyes, and the pupils of his 3 eyes were also blue. At this moment, his eyes were blank, as if he had lost his rationality. Chaotic Divine Demon. Zhou Feit looked at the huge blue creature and muttered to himself. Zhou Marshall had once seen this chaotic divine demon at the Supreme Will Realm fight the Supreme Will Realm experts in the Crimson Overlord's camp, and be killed by the Supreme Will Realm experts in the Crimson Overlord's camp. He thought that he would never see it again after leaving that place. He did not expect that after parting ways in the Time Ruins, he could still meet the other party's relics despite such a long time and distance. It was just that the timing and the reason for their meeting were not too good. Lord Water God, destroy the enemy before me. At this moment, the Lotus Flame Supreme God said respectfully to the remnant body of the chaotic divine demon. And these words were like an order to the huge blue creature. His confused expression gradually disappeared, and his gaze gradually turned sharp. He looked at Zhou Fight, and the third eye on his forehead suddenly shot out a blue light. The bluish-blue water light was like a flying needle that shot straight at the spot between Zhou Fight's eyebrows. When Lord of 10,000 Evils saw this scene, his eyes almost popped out. Even though he had not interacted with Zhou Zhan for long, Zhou Fight's straightforward style and pragmatic and belligerent personality had long made he a confidant in his heart. Zhou Fight obviously felt this too. What made he very happy was that from Zhou Fight's attitude, it was obvious that he did not reject his idea of befriending him. As the saying went, it was difficult to find a confidant. The Lord of 10,000 Evils had lived for so long, but he only had a few close friends. Now, he was watching helplessly as one of his confidants was killed by the other party using methods at the Supreme Will Realm. How could he control him? Brother Common People's Regal. The Lord of 10,000 Evils directly abandoned the Supreme God of Fire Poison, who was his enemy. Even if Fire Poison took the opportunity to poison his divine body, he did not have time to think and rushed straight at Zhou Fight. Swish, 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 swish. A total of 7 supreme divine artifacts appeared behind he and flew towards the Lotus Flame Supreme God with a thought. The Lotus Flame Supreme God wanted to dodge, but he was currently controlling the will remnant of a supreme will powerhouse, and his divine body could not move at all. This was also the flaw of using this treasure. It was also because of this that he only dared to use it alone, when Lord of 10,000 Evils was restrained by the Fire Poison Supreme God. However, he never expected that Lord of 10,000 Evils would dare to risk being severely injured to escape the restraints of the Fire Poison Supreme God to deal with him. Wasn't this guy in competitions with the Common People's Regal? Why was he so desperate to save the other party? Explode. During this period, when the Supreme Divine Artifact approached the Fire Poison Supreme God, Lord of 10,000 Evils immediately shouted. In the next second, the 7 Supreme Divine Artifacts directly caused a world-shaking explosion around the Lotus Flame Supreme God. This was a total of 7 Supreme Divine Artifacts. The explosive power from each of them was no less than the self-destruction of a Supreme God. The self-destruction of 7 Supreme God artifacts was equivalent to an ordinary person stepping on 7 landmines and detonating them at the same time. The Lotus Flame Supreme God died on the spot without any time to leave his last words. The Fire Poison Supreme God's expression changed drastically when he saw this. However, he looked at the Common People's Regal and thought for a moment before a smile appeared on his face. The death of the Lotus Flame Supreme God might be a good thing for me. In this way, all the credit for killing the Supreme Lord's reserve army will be mine. The Lotus Flame Supreme God might not even think of it until he died. He regarded the Fire Poison Supreme God as a close friend. However, this friend of he only wanted to plunder his credit after he died. Then, he looked at Zhou Fight. Die. Common People's Regal. Dying under the remains of a Supreme Will Realm cultivator could be considered an honorable death. How many Supreme Gods who had fallen did not even have the chance to die like this? You're just a Master God. You should be proud to die in such a way. Chapter 1567. Zhou Fight is a quasi-supreme will realm combat power expert. 2. The current situation was very dangerous for Zhou Fight. The Lord of 10,000 Evils really wanted to immediately come to Zhou Fight's side to help him. He had been the Supreme Lord's third reserve army for so many years, and had many trump cards on him. Among them, There was no lack of self-protection trump cards at the level of supreme willpower. Therefore, if he could rush to Zhou Feit's side, it was completely possible to guarantee the next week's battle. He knew that Zhou Feit was a clone. It was not a big loss to die. Yet, at this moment, he didn't think too much about it. What he was thinking about was completely his instinctive behavior. However, he couldn't do it. He did not have the dragon god of all life, so he could instantly cross the void to Zhou Feit's side. He could only watch helplessly as the blue water light that emitted the aura of supreme will shot towards Zhou Feit. The Lord of 10,000 Evils couldn't bear it and closed his eyes. Right at that moment, Zhou Feit calmly stretched out his right hand, and a dazzling saber beam floated in his palm. I didn't think I'd need you so soon. Zhou Feit sighed. This resplendent blade light was the self-protection method that the supreme god of the heavenly blade had given to he before he left. A full-strength attack that contained a quasi-supreme willpower realm expert. He had a thought. The next second, the resplendent saber beam instantly flew out of his palm and formed the phantom of the supreme god of the heavenly blade behind him. He looked coldly at the water god's phantom. Then, his gaze landed on the blue water light that was flying over. He suddenly brandished his saber and slashed out a saber beam that could destroy the world. Quasi-supreme will law skill, heaven-destroying Tao. Swoosh! The saber beam carried a terrifying might as it shot towards the azure blue water beam. And that's not all. The apparition of the supreme god of the heavenly blade also turned into a black blade light and merged into the heaven-destroying path that he had slashed out. The sky-destroying Tao, which was already powerful, became even more powerful after merging with the shadow of the supreme god of the heavenly blade. The next moment, he saw the heaven extermination Tao collide with the azure blue water light. The entire void suddenly fell silent. Then, buzz! A terrifying and high-pitched buzzing sound rang out. Amidst this buzzing sound, it was as if countless waves were colliding, and a large number of sharp and violent saber cries reverberated. Even the armies of both sides, who were fighting far away, heard this voice from far away. Many of the remaining deities could not help but look over, wanting to see what was going on. However, even Zhou Feit and Lord of 10,000 Evils were unable to see what was happening inside the collision, let alone gods at their level. The confrontation between the quasi-supreme will and the supreme will seemed to be only one level away from them. But there was actually an extremely long distance between them. It's like an elementary school math student watching a genetic modification experiment. Even the direction was different, let alone understanding and cognition. Zhou Feit and Lord of 10,000 Evils only knew that after the buzzing stopped, that turquoise water light shot towards them without any decrease in momentum. Meanwhile, the supreme god of the heavenly blade's heaven-exterminating path had already disappeared without a trace. The supreme god of the heavenly blade's heavenly destruction, Tao, could not block this casual attack from the remains of the supreme will. When Zhou Feit saw this, he was shocked but not for long. One of them was a quasi-supreme will, while the other was a genuine supreme will after all. Even if it was only a fragment that had fallen countless years ago, it was not something a quasi-supreme will realm cultivator could resist. It could at least weaken part of the power of the attack. Zhou Feit activated all the land in the world belongs to the king without hesitation. At the same time, he changed the rules of the domain, weakening the attacks that entered his domain to the greatest extent. Then, he did something that shocked all the supreme gods present. With a thought, more than 100 supreme divine artifacts appeared behind him. Every supreme divine artifact of they shone with resplendent treasure light in the ultimate void, manifesting their nobility and extraordinariness. When Lord of 10,000 Evils and the fire poison supreme god saw so many supreme divine artifacts appear behind Zhou Feit, they were immediately shocked. Their first thought was, the common people's regal actually has so many supreme divine artifacts? The second thought was, what is the common people's regal doing? Soon, Zhou Feit used his actions to tell Lord of 10,000 Evils, the supreme god of fire poison, and the obscure god spirits who were secretly observing the battle on their side what he wanted to do. As Zhou Feit retreated rapidly and pulled away from the blue water light, he pointed with his right hand and saw the 100-odd supreme divine artifacts flying towards the blue water light in unison and arriving in front of him in an instant. Explode! Zhou Fite shouted coldly. As soon as he finished speaking, the aura of these 100 supreme divine artifacts instantly became unstable. Then, all the supreme divine artifacts self-destructed. The self-destruction of more than 100 supreme god artifacts instantly swept through the entire battlefield. Lord of 10,000 Evils, and the fire-poisoned supreme god's expressions changed drastically. They did not even have the time to be shocked that Zhou Fite would do such a prodigal act. They instinctively flew into the distance and tried their best to distance themselves from the explosion zone. Zhou Fite was also within the range of the explosion. Fortunately, he also had many defensive supreme divine artifacts. He instantly took out more than 200 supreme divine artifacts and used his divine power to activate they at the same time, allowing they to protect him. Fortunately, the Lord's Law skill allowed Zhou Fite to possess all the supreme divine power of the 15 supreme gods. Otherwise, he might not have been able to control so many supreme divine artifacts at the same time to protect himself. Chapter 1568. Zhou Fite is a quasi-supreme will-realm combat power expert. 2. However, even though Zhou Fite had made so many arrangements, when the terrifying explosion struck, the dozen or so supreme divine artifacts protecting the periphery of Zhou Fite were instantly destroyed by the explosion. After that, even though the middle-level supreme divine artifact was not destroyed, it also suffered varying degrees of damage. Zhou Fite heaved a sigh of relief when he saw this. Then, he was still worried. He summoned more than 200 supreme divine artifacts and guided them to the center of the explosion. Then, he detonated they again. Only then did he lower his guard slightly and look warily at the center of the explosion. The power of his will could guide more supreme divine artifacts in the number 1 treasure vault at any time. As long as there was a trace of the blue water light, he would throw out the supreme divine artifacts again without hesitation, exhausting the other party as much as possible until this danger was completely eliminated. At the same time, the Lord of 10,000 Evils and God Lord Fire Poison, who had fled far away with all their might, looked at each other in shock. They actually felt an inexplicable sense of appreciation for each other. Then, they looked at the center of the explosion, and the shock in their eyes did not dissipate for a long time. That's more than 100 supreme divine artifacts. He self-destructed just like that? The fire-poisoned supreme god muttered to himself. As the ultimate void race often collected ownerless treasures that wandered in the ultimate void, they had quite a number of supreme divine artifacts. At the very least, they had much more supreme divine artifacts than the Supreme Will and the Crimson Overlord. This was also why the supreme gods of the ultimate void race, they each had at least 1 or 2 supreme divine artifacts. Unlike the Supreme Will and the supreme gods under the Crimson Overlord, some supreme gods were even using Master God tier divine artifacts as their weapons and equipment. However, even though they were as rich as they were, they had never been as prodigal as Zhou Fite. Thinking about how Zhou Fite had self-destructed more than 100 supreme divine artifacts without hesitation just now, even though he was the other party's enemy now, he could not help but lament in his heart. How good would it be to give me those 100 supreme divine artifacts? If you are willing to give it to me, I can persuade the Lotus Flame Supreme God not to use that thing against you. This guy self-destructed so many supreme divine artifacts without any hesitation. On the other side, Lord of 10,000 Evils was also muttering to himself. At this moment, he, the third reserve army of the Supreme Lord, was like a country bumpkin from the old era, seeing the extravagance of the upper class for the first time. Is this the Supreme Lord Reserve Army for the new era? I'm getting old. The Lord of 10,000 Evils suddenly felt a little dejected. As for Zhou Fite, who was still in the midst of an explosion, he wasn't too worried. Even though he had not known Zhou Zhan for long, he could tell that the other party was a calm and smart person. Since the other party dared to use such a method to injure the enemy and harm himself, he must have considered his safety. Mutual destruction? He felt that this word did not exist in the other party's dictionary. Sure enough, in less than a moment, after the aftershocks of the explosion dissipated, Lord of 10,000 Evils, and the supreme god of fire poison saw that Zhou Fight was standing on the spot unscathed, and he was surrounded by more than 10 defensive supreme divine artifacts that emitted treasure light. All of a sudden, whether it was Lord of 10,000 Evils who was mentally prepared, or the supreme god of fire poison, who wanted to see common people's regal die, they all fell silent after seeing this scene. Brother Demon Lord, stop daydreaming. Let's destroy this fire poison supreme god together. Right at that moment, Zhou Fight's calm voice sounded. Only then did Lord of 10,000 Evils return to his senses. He immediately looked in the direction of the fire poison supreme god, and saw that the fire poison supreme god had already fled crazily into the distance. At this moment, the fire poison supreme god cursed in his heart. How was this common people's regal a rookie, who had just been promoted to Supreme Lord Reserve Army? How could he be a junior, who had only reached the supreme god level, by relying on nomological secret techniques? It could withstand an attack from the remains of a supreme will head-on, and had a large number of supreme divine artifacts in its hands. It could casually make hundreds of supreme divine artifacts self-destruct to destroy the enemy. Such strength was already completely at the quasi-supreme willpower level. What's wrong with using external objects? Wasn't external objects also a part of one's strength? If he had known that the other party was such a pervert, how could he have come with the Lotus Flame Supreme God to deal with him? Wouldn't it be better to report directly to Your Excellency the Void Emperor, and show the true strength of the common people's regal? Wouldn't it be better to let the Void Emperor directly send the same quasi-supreme willpower realm to deal with him? The actions of the Lotus Flame Supreme God and him were simply courting death in his eyes. So what if they were two top-grade 4 supreme gods? In front of these quasi-supreme willpower experts, they were still as weak as chicks. I shouldn't have been blinded by benefits and come to find trouble with him for this credit. The fire poison supreme god was filled with regret. Who would have thought that this common people's regal could match a quasi-supreme willpower realm expert with his full strength? However, it was too late for regrets now. He only wanted to escape. At that moment, Sky Hoop Ring City, the Lord of 10,000 Evils' voice sounded. The next second, the supreme god of fire poison saw that in front of him, an incomparably tall golden illusory city wall had appeared, blocking the direction of his escape. He looked in another direction and realized that he had unknowingly been trapped in an illusory golden-ringed ancient city. He could not escape from this illusory city, no matter which direction he went. He turned around. Zhou Fight and Lord of 10,000 Evils stood behind him, and looked at he, as if they were looking at a dead person. When the fire poison supreme god saw this, his entire body turned cold and he entered the abyss. A moment later, Zhou Fight put away the divine body of the fire poison supreme god. In exchange, Zhou Fight gave Lord of 10,000 Evils 6 supreme divine artifacts. The fire poison supreme god had 4 supreme divine artifacts after all. Lord of 10,000 Evils looked at the 6 supreme divine artifacts floating in front of him. Under normal circumstances, he should be happy. These 6 supreme divine artifacts were a good harvest even for him. However, when he thought about how this common people's regal had treated hundreds of supreme divine artifacts as nothing, he suddenly felt that the 6 supreme divine artifacts in front of him suddenly became dull. Then, after some hesitation, he couldn't help but ask, "Brother common people's regal, where did you get these supreme divine artifacts? The reason why you dare to self-destruct so many supreme divine artifacts is because you have more, right?" Zhou Fight subconsciously glanced at the 100,000 plus supreme divine artifacts in the number 1 treasure vault, and could not help but nod. The Lord of 10,000 Evils fell silent. After a long while, he said with a solemn and excited expression, "Brother common people's regal, these supreme divine artifacts of yours will be of great use in our battle against the illusionary tribe. I think it won't be long before the Lord Hyrule will be in touch with you. If the Hyrule requires it, I will not hesitate to do so." Zhou Fight chuckled. In any case, With the Supreme Will's way of doing things, if he really came to ask for his supreme divine artifact, he would definitely not treat him badly. Therefore, he said this sincerely. The Lord of 10,000 Evils nodded. Then, he sighed with emotion. I didn't expect you to solve such a dead end. Now your combat strength is undoubtedly at the quasi-supreme will state. You can't use that much. If I hadn't encountered the other party, using a supreme will level technique this time, I wouldn't have wasted so many supreme divine artifacts to deal with it. Zhou Fei shook his head. The enemy doesn't know that. In the eyes of the enemy, if you can use it the first time, you might be able to use it the second time. There are advantages but also disadvantages. There's no need to talk about the benefits. Just in terms of deterrence, your quasi-supreme willpower combat strength is enough to make countless enemies run away or even surrender. As for the bad side, after the Void Emperor knows your greatest combat strength, it's very likely that he will send other quasi-supreme willpower experts to snipe you. We need to prepare early. When the Lord of 10,000 Evils said this, he couldn't help but feel a headache. Quasi-supreme willpower realm experts were all seeds of future supreme willpower. All of them were very difficult to deal with. Even if he had a large number of trump cards in his hands, he didn't want to easily be involved with such existences. He hoped that the Supreme Will could help after knowing the methods of the common people's regal. Chapter 1569. The Grinding of the Supreme God of the Heavenly Blade. In the Land of Dusk, a black-robed saberman, holding a black saber, was fighting crazily under the siege of a group of experts from the Illusionist clan. There were 15 powerhouses of the Illusionist clan in total, and 5 of them were at the quasi-supreme willpower realm. The other 10 powerhouses of the Illusionist clan also had the strength of a top-grade 4 supreme god. The saber expert seemed to be in danger under the all-out siege of these experts of the illusionary race. However, in such a precarious situation, he actually withstood the attacks of these experts of the Illusionist clan with his shocking will and perfect saber technique. The number of wounds on his body increased as time passed, but he wasn't dead. He still did not die. He had been defending against the attacks of the supreme gods and quasi-supreme willpower experts of the Illusionist clan. He was even trying his best to counterattack during this period. Even though this caused more wounds to appear on his body, making he look even more in danger, however, be it the powerhouses of the Illusionist clan who participated in the siege, or the God King Heaven punishment, and the Supreme Will who were secretly observing this scene, they could not help but be amazed by this guy's hard work and will. Of course, the experts of the Illusionist clan were even more furious. This fellow's attempt to counterattack was like a slap to their faces, telling them that this was the extent of the so-called siege. Hence, the Illusionist clan was even angrier. In their anger, they attacked the saber expert even more fiercely. The situation of this saber expert became even more dangerous. However, he didn't die and was still trying to counterattack. During this process, unknowingly, his combat skills soared Dao laws, and his will began to increase at a very stable and firm speed. On a broken platform not far away, the God King Heaven punishment and the Supreme Will had been watching the battle between the Sword Dao expert and the Illusionist clan. This fellow is really a lunatic. He just came to the Land of Dusk, and he dares to provoke so many powerhouses at the same level as him to attack him? The God King Heaven punishment sighed. Then an interested smile appeared on his face. However, I like it. I'm short of such a valiant general. You say this every time I bring outstanding supreme gods and quasi-supreme willpower realms. The Supreme Will said calmly. There are all living beings with brains who love talent. Furthermore, I'm a lord. It's normal for me to have the thought of recruiting him when I see such an expert. Furthermore, I'm a lord. It's normal for me to have the thought of recruiting him when I see such an expert. Then I'm afraid you'll be disappointed. The Supreme God of the Heavenly Blade already has someone in mind. The reason why he agreed to come with me is even to serve him after reaching the Supreme Will realm. The Supreme Will said, Oh, God King Heaven punishment was a little surprised. Then he said enviously, Which supreme will is it? It's not any supreme will. The supreme will shook his head. Is he the former supreme god leader? The god king Heaven Punishment said in surprise. It was rare for an expert to still be willing to pledge loyalty to the former supreme god leader, after advancing to a supreme will. Not really. A smile appeared on the supreme will's face. Even though that little fellow had the combat power of a top supreme god, he was indeed not a supreme god yet. Who's that? The god king Heaven Punishment was really surprised this time. It can't be a master god, right? How can that be? It was difficult even to get to know ordinary supreme gods, let alone subdue them as subordinates. Not to mention coming into contact with a quasi-supreme willpower practitioner, like the supreme god of the heavenly blade. The god king Heaven Punishment thought. However, he suddenly thought of a possibility. Is that my fourth brother? He asked. You sure like to talk about your relatives. The supreme will shook his head. It's really my fourth brother. The god king Heaven Punishment clapped lightly and smiled. I didn't expect this. I really didn't expect this. As expected of our fourth Supreme Lord Reserve Army, what he did is indeed extraordinary. It shocked even me, his big brother. Then, he glanced at the Supreme God of the Heavenly Blade, who was still fighting, and sighed with emotion. I won't snatch you since you're fourth brother's future subordinate. The Supreme Will said nothing. At this moment, the Supreme Will's expression suddenly changed slightly. The Supreme God of the Heavenly Blade, who was fighting with the powerhouses of the Illusionist clan, also changed his expression slightly, and his movements were a little messy. However, he quickly adjusted his mentality and continued to fight the enemy in front of him calmly. However, he became worried. He specially left a full-powered strike for Zhou Fight before he left. He had thought that his gift would allow Zhou Fight to avoid danger. He did not expect that he had discovered that not only had his full-strength attack been exhausted, but most importantly, the full-strength attack he had left behind had actually failed to block the attack of the unknown enemy. The Supreme God of the Heavenly Blade suddenly felt ridiculous. What he thought he could show off was actually shattered by the enemy the next day. The Supreme Will. The Supreme God of the Heavenly Blade's eyes were deep, but a monstrous flame suddenly rose from the depths of his heart. I want to become a Supreme Will. I must become a Supreme Will. An all-out attack at the quasi-Supreme Will level could be shattered by the enemy. The enemy should not be able to shatter that Supreme Will level attack, right? It should be able to protect the person he wanted to protect, right? At this moment, the Supreme God of the Heavenly Blade's desire to advance to a Supreme Will reached its peak. Even the every swing of his saber became much more ferocious and firm. The powerhouses of the Illusionist clan who surrounded him only felt that this guy in front of them seemed to have become stronger. D****. How could this guy be so tenacious and become stronger the more he fought? The God King Heaven Punishment looked at the Supreme God of the Heavenly Blade, who was getting fiercer and fiercer. Why did this guy's attacks suddenly become even sharper and more suicidal? It doesn't look like he used a secret technique to increase his strength. Instead, it looks like he was stimulated. He was puzzled. It's just a shock. The Supreme Will then told him what had happened on the Ultimate Void battlefield. No wonder. The God King Heaven Punishment nodded in realization. Then, he asked, how's my fourth brother now? It's okay. However, I have something to look for him on later. In addition, I want to tell you that this fourth brother of yours already has the strength of a quasi-Supreme Will. The Supreme Will said. The God King Heaven Punishment looked at the Supreme Will and did not understand what it meant. However, the God King Heaven Punishment did not ask further since he did not say anything. He excitedly said, as expected of fourth brother. He actually obtained the combat strength of a quasi-Supreme Will realm in such a short period of time. In that case, will I be able to see him in the Land of Dusk soon? The Supreme Will was silent for a moment before saying, he is only at Master God Tier Advanced Grade now. Only at Master God Tier Advanced Grade. The God King Heaven Punishment said in disappointment. Then, he came back to his senses and gradually fell silent. Then, he grinned and said, what a pervert. But I like it. Does second brother know about this? Your second brother is fishing. He just sits there fishing every day and treats the river of time as his fish pond, right? The God King Heaven Punishment was speechless. Chapter 1570. Will Holy Artifact, Holy Scripture of the Heart. Using the Son of Destiny, the Supreme Will shook his head. The 4 reserve armies of his, each had their own personalities. However, they had such personalities and habits that were extremely compatible with their path. So he could not say anything. The God King Heaven Punishment didn't say anything else and said, Lord Supreme Will, the Supreme God of the Heavenly Blade has just come up. And you're already making him face such a difficult test, and not allowing us to help him. Isn't this too dangerous for him? The Supreme God of the Heavenly Blade is a god of battle. He has to experience the most dangerous battles to have a chance of advancement, if he wants to advance from the quasi-supreme Will realm to the Supreme Will realm. Besides, I wasn't the one who suggested this test. He suggested it himself. I have no reason to disagree, the Supreme Will said. The God King Heaven Punishment nodded in realization. Then, he looked at the Supreme God of the Heavenly Blade in admiration. I admire him more and more. Haha, I'm also more and more envious of my 4th brother I've never met. He actually has such a fierce general with endless potential before he becomes a Supreme God. Then, he looked at it and frowned slightly. The fighting style of the Supreme God of the Heavenly Blade is too dangerous. It's fast to improve like this, but how can he be healed from his injuries? Lord Supreme Will, did you give him healing pills? I gave him something else. The common people's regal has already given healing pills, supreme divine artifacts at that, to him. 4th brother already gave that. The God King Heaven Punishment was shocked. How rich was his 4th brother? Did he really not inherit the inheritance of a Supreme Will? At this moment, the God King Heaven Punishment happened to see the Supreme God of the Heavenly Blade split the powerhouses of the illusionist clan who surrounded him, in front of him, with a saber beam. Then, he retreated a large distance, took out a large handful of divine medicine from his world rings, and threw them into his mouth. The God King Heaven Punishment's eyes widened. Those were all divine medicines at the Supreme God level if he was not mistaken, right? Did this guy eat pills of this level as snacks? Even though he was already a Supreme Willpower Realm expert, he did not dare to use divine medicine like this. It could be done, but there was no need. What kind of person is my 3rd brother? The God King Heaven Punishment muttered to himself. The Supreme Will was amused by this scene. He thought of something again, and his body quietly dissipated. He did not even notice God King Heaven Punishment. At the same time, in the ultimate void battlefield, after Zhou Fight and Lord of 10,000 Evils eliminated the 2 ultimate void supreme gods, Lotus Flame and Fire Poison, they immediately returned to the battlefield. On the battlefield, the Blazing Sun Divine Kingdom's God Spirit Army and the 1,000 Evil Armies God Spirit Army were still insisting on attacking the Lotus Flame main city, even though the Fire Lotus flowers and poisonous gas in the Fire Lotus domain were constantly harming their army. The gods of their army still continued to attack while resisting. Fortunately, they had powerful defensive and healing abilities. Otherwise, there would have been heavy casualties. Seeing this, Zhou Fight immediately took out a pure white bottle. This small bottle was the Grade 4 Supreme Divine Artifact, 1000 Poison Bottle, that the Fire Poison Supreme God used to release poisonous fog. Now that the Fire Poison Supreme God was dead, this Supreme Divine Artifact fell into Zhou Fight's hands. He uncorked the bottle and threw it into the sky. The 10,000 poison bottle rapidly expanded. Then a large amount of suction force was born from the mouth of the bottle. This suction force quickly absorbed the pale green poisonous fog that filled the battlefield. In less than a moment, the pale green poisonous fog that had filled the entire battlefield was absorbed into the 10,000 poison bottle. The pressure on the Blazing Sun Divine Kingdom's God Spirit Army and the 1,000 Evil Armies God Spirit Army instantly decreased. It's a pity that the Fire Lotus domain is the Grade 3 Supreme God Realm Defense Facility of the Lotus Flame main city. The switch for it is in the city, otherwise I would have turned it off too. Zhou Fight said regretfully. The Lord of 10,000 Evils laughed. This brother of his was good at everything, but his only flaw was that he wanted everything. Nonetheless, this was not a huge flaw. Then, Zhou Feit did not waste any time, and prepared to release the Son of Destiny immediately. He had already checked. The treasure that stopped him from using the Son of Destiny was a supreme will-level treasure called the Holy Scripture of the Heart. This supreme will-level treasure came from the Lotus Flame Supreme God. It was probably requested by him from the supreme will-level existence of the ultimate void race. Its effect was also very simple. There were only two. One was to defend against the attacks of bewitching abilities from the outside world. Not only could he provide the user with protection in terms of willpower to prevent they from being tampered with by the strong and becoming their slaves, he could also be used by the soldiers under him, which happened to restrain Zhou Feit's Son of Destiny. The other ability was to assist in the cultivation of willpower. It could increase the speed of the willpower cultivator. The supplementary effect of this increase in willpower was even effective against existences at the Supreme Will Realm. And now, with the death of the Lotus Flame Supreme God, the Holy Scripture of the Heart naturally fell into his hands. After Zhou Feit obtained this Holy Scripture of the Heart, he was naturally overjoyed. This was also his first Supreme Will level treasure. And this treasure had another official name, Holy Artifact. This kind of Holy Artifact was a level higher than a Supreme Divine Artifact. It was specially used by Supreme Willpower Realm experts, and could allow them to maximize their strength. I'm a Master God. Isn't it a little too high profile for me to hold a Holy Artifact? Even though that was what Zhou Feit said when he saw this Holy Artifact, the smile on his lips did not stop. With the Premier Heart, and this Holy Scripture of the Heart, he felt that the efficiency of his main body reaching the limit of the Will Divine Transformation Realm should be greatly increased. Perhaps it wouldn't be long before their main body could advance to the limit of the Will Divine Transformation Realm. And their clones could also advance. Speaking of which, after Zhou Feit obtained the Holy Scripture of the Heart, and confirmed from Bodhi Supreme that the other party did not have any other methods to defend against the Son of Destiny, he immediately released the Son of Destiny to the Lotus Flame main city. Soon a text notification appeared. Prompt: you have activated your Supreme Unique Lord talent, Son of Destiny. You have been blessed by the heavens. 50% of the enemies in the Enemy Lord's faction have been summoned by the heavens, and have become your loyal subordinates. Lord Talent Notification 1. A total of 20,123,981,298 low-tier deity level Ultimate Void God Spirits. 11, 138, 723. 11 mid-tier deity level Ultimate Void God Spirits. 5,174,636,152 high-tier deity level Ultimate Void God Spirits. 1,085,768,731 Ultimate Void True Gods. 18,000 Ultimate Void Master God tiers. 5 Grade 1 Ultimate Void Supreme Gods. 3 Grade 2 Ultimate Void Supreme Gods. 2 Grade 3 Ultimate Void Supreme Gods. And 1 Grade 4 Ultimate Void Supreme God left there. Faction and became your destiny follower. After reading it, a smile appeared on Zhou Feit's lips. Indeed, the Lotus Flame Supreme God and the Fire Poison Supreme God, the armies of the two Lords of War territories, were stationed inside this Lotus Flame main city. He had actually instigated to instigate 36,422,489,761 ordinary Ultimate Void God Spirits. 1,085,768,731 Ultimate Void True God tiers. 18,000 Ultimate Void Master God tiers. And 11 Ultimate Void Supreme Gods at once. This time, the strength of the forces under him doubled again. Chapter 1571. Massive Chaos Divine Treasures. Counterattack. In addition, remove the Supreme God-level defense facilities of the Lotus Flame main city, and open the gates of the Lotus Flame main city at the same time, allowing our army to enter the Lotus Flame main city to fight. After completing the Insight defection, Zhou Feit immediately gave an order to the gods in the Lotus Flame main city, In less than 3 to 4 seconds, the Fire Lotus domain on the entire battlefield shook slightly. Then, the slowly spinning blazing flame red lotuses quickly collapsed one after another. In less than a moment, the blazing flame red lotuses on the entire battlefield collapsed and disappeared. Fire Lotus domain dissolve. At the same time, the Lotus Flame main city, which had been closed all this while, suddenly opened slowly. A group of ultimate void god spirits, true god tiers, master god tiers, and even supreme gods flew out of the door and said respectfully and excitedly to the blazing sun divine kingdom's god spirit army outside, "Welcome to Lotus Flame main city. The army of God, please follow us and surrender quickly. There are still some enemies in the city resisting stubbornly. I don't think we need to show any mercy to these enemies, who are unwilling to surrender even until death. Let's just destroy them with all our might." Bai Yin nodded. At the same time, she sighed in her heart. It was hard to imagine that the deity who had said this was not long ago stopping their attack together with those enemies who were unwilling to surrender until their deaths, treating them as their mortal enemy. No matter how many times they saw this ability of His Majesty, they still felt that he was too domineering. However, it was good to be domineering. War, especially for those enemies, had never been merciful or gentle. To be kind to others was to be cruel to oneself. Then, Bai Yin immediately led her army and entered the Lotus Flame main city to fight the remaining enemies who had not been incited by the Son of Destiny to incite defection. This was not an easy task, since Zhou Fight had instigated the incite defection to have an army of more than 30 billion god spirits. That only meant that there were still so many god spirits in the city who had not been successfully instigated by the incite defection after all. It would take a long time to destroy so many god spirit level enemies. Fortunately, they had already become the absolute advantage. What they needed to spend next was only time. Then, they could welcome victory. At the same time, just as Zhou Fight and Lord of 10,000 Evils were fighting in the ultimate void battleground, Zhou Marshal also brought the supreme god of death, Thanatos, and 10,000 supremacies to the Chaos Sea. They quickly found the space-time chaotic divine demon. At that moment, the space-time chaotic divine demon was gathered with his companions, waiting for Zhou Marshal's arrival. Zhou Marshal only took a glance from afar and nodded slightly. Not bad. This time, the 4 chaotic divine demons brought a total of 68 chaotic divine demons. There were 10 more than last time. It was enough even though it did not increase much. He made the Master God tiers stay where they were, while he went over with Thanatos and came in front of them. "Greetings, Your Majesty. Greetings, Supreme God of Death." The 4 chaotic divine demons, Space-Time, Wind Ancestor, and Ghost Shadow, immediately greeted Zhou Marshal and the Supreme God of Death respectfully when they saw them. The other chaotic divine demons were the same. They had probably practiced it before coming, judging from their proficiency. Zhou Marshal nodded slightly at them before saying to the chaotic divine demons, "Are all of you willing to trade chaos divine treasures with this emperor?" "Yes, Your Majesty." The 68 chaotic divine demons said respectfully. "All of you want a Master God tier divine artifact?" "Yes, Your Majesty." When Zhou Marshal heard this, an idea popped up in his mind. Could it be that after a period of time, the entire divine demon realm would be flooded with Master God tier divine artifacts because of his main Bodis actions? "I don't think so. Probably not," he muttered inwardly. Following that, he didn't say anything else. He directly gave the space-time chaotic divine demon 272 Master God tier divine artifacts and asked he to take care of them. He would hand them over to the chaotic divine demons when he returned to the divine demon realm. Then, he directly activated the king and entered the realm of a grade 4 supreme god. When Zhou Marshal's rank 4 supreme god aura appeared, all the chaotic divine demons present were stunned. This pressure is the pressure of a supreme god? Our emperor is a supreme god, and a top supreme god at that. The chaotic divine demons were extremely shocked after sensing Zhou Marshal's strength. The space-time chaotic divine demons especially were overjoyed. They recognized that His Majesty was actually a top-notch supreme god, so it was not a loss for them to acknowledge His Majesty as their master. Not only could it bring real benefits like divine crystals and supreme divine artifacts to them, but it could also protect them with their strength. In the future, they would persuade other chaotic divine demons to come and trade for chaotic divine treasures. If they were told that His Majesty was a supreme god expert, this matter would become more credible. At this moment, they saw Zhou Marshall casually kill 68 chaotic divine demons with a palm strike with the strength of a top supreme god. After extracting their chaos divine treasures, the space-time chaotic divine demons were very sensible and did not stay any longer. After bidding farewell to Zhou Marshall, they returned to the divine demon realm without stopping. With His Majesty, who had the strength of a supreme god, backing they was confident that they could bring more chaotic divine demons to trade for chaos divine treasures next time. Zhou Marshall sorted out his gains after the space-time chaotic divine demons left. Of the 68 chaotic divine demons, one of them had used a big explosion and dropped 40 units of chaotic divine treasures. The remaining 67 chaotic divine demons each dropped 4 units of chaotic divine treasures to him, which added up to 308 units of chaotic divine treasures. When Zhou Marshall saw this, a smile appeared on his face. He needed a total of 1,000 units of chaos divine treasures to upgrade his territory from beginner grade master god tier to intermediate grade master god tier. And after yesterday's time ruins, the number of chaos divine treasures he had increased from 70 units to 240 units. Now, with these 308 units of chaos divine treasures, he had a total of 548 units of chaos divine treasures. We're already halfway through. I haven't gone to the time ruins today. The smile on Zhou Marshall's face became even more obvious. It seemed that he could upgrade his territory to an intermediate master god tier territory tomorrow, and then upgrade his Blazing Sun Divine Kingdom from a beginner grade master god tier kingdom to intermediate grade master god tier kingdom. Then, he didn't waste any time, and immediately led the god spirits to the time ruins. After arriving at the time ruins, Zhou Marshall led the god spirits in normally. Then, he realized that he had arrived at the same place as yesterday. Then, the time mission appeared in the time ruins. However, unlike yesterday, the hidden mission that could increase the Supreme Lord's reserve army power was gone. Zhou Marshall was not surprised by this. After all, he had already completed this hidden mission and received the reward. It was normal for him to disappear. Since it's exactly the same as yesterday, there's nothing else to say. Let's proceed normally. Zhou Marshall took out the Seeking Fire seed and used it directly. Chapter 1572. Grade 1 Supreme Sacred Body. Casually creating a Lord talent. The sequence of development was exactly the same as yesterday. They had eliminated the 20 God tier chaotic divine demons and 5 supreme god chaotic divine demons. Then, the Heavenly Furnace Lord and the Will of Yellow River appeared. Then the Will of War appeared. In the end, the Will of Yellow River and the Will of War worked together to deal with the Heavenly Furnace Lord. Then it was the death of the Chaos Will. In addition, this time, after the Heavenly Furnace Lord died, Zhou Marshall took a chance and extracted his loots again. However, it was a pity that the Heavenly Furnace Lord's corpse did not drop his Supreme Will inheritance again, which was the Sacred Book of Will. Even though Zhou Marshall felt that it was a pity, he was not surprised. If this time ruins could steadily produce an inheritance of the Supreme Will realm every day, then this time ruins would simply be heaven-defying. The Supreme Will and the Crimson Overlord would probably fight crazily for it. So how could he have a chance? After everything was settled, Zhou Marshall took the 170 units of Chaos Divine Treasure and left the Time Ruins. Outside the Time Ruins, Zhou Marshall looked at the 718 units of Chaos Divine Treasures in the number 1 treasure vault, and the corners of his mouth curled up slightly. At this rate, not to mention the Chaos Divine Treasures needed to upgrade the Master God tier intermediate grade territory, he would not be afraid even if upgrading the Master God tier advanced grade territory required more units of Chaos Divine Treasures. At this moment, Zhou Marshall's divine body suddenly trembled. He was taken aback. He then looked in the direction of Blazing Sun Divine Capital in ecstasy. This moment has finally come, he muttered to himself. At the same time, all of Zhou's clones looked in the direction of Blazing Sun Divine Capital at the same time. The new future that belongs to us has finally begun. In the reincarnation sacred palace of the Blazing Sun Divine Capital, Zhou sat cross-legged on the Tao Comprehension futon. His body emitted a 9-colored divine light. Compared to before, his temperament had an additional eternal and indestructible mysterious temperament. At this moment, the 9-colored divine light on his body slowly converged before it was completely absorbed into him. He slowly opened his eyes just as the 9-colored divine light was completely retracted. He saw that his eyes had turned into 9-colored divine eyes that had gathered 9 types of divine light. With another light blink of his eyes, his 9-colored divine eye vanished and returned to normal. He raised his hand and looked at his jade-like pure and flawless palm. He laughed softly. Then, his voice became louder and louder. Finally, all the subjects in the Blazing Sun Kingdom heard Zhou's carefree laughter. Is that His Majesty's laughter? Did something good happen to His Majesty? Why is he smiling so happily? Your Majesty is overjoyed. We are also happy with you, ha ha ha. That's right. The better Your Majesty is, the better the future of us subjects will be. I think it won't be long before we hear new good news about us. It's like this. His Majesty has always been very good to us. He always thinks of us when anything good happens. I'm curious what kind of good thing happened to His Majesty. Go away, go away. His Majesty's matters are not something you can interfere in. That's a secret of the Divine Kingdom, understand? I was just saying. Look at how serious you are. Haha. When the subjects in the Blazing Sun Divine Kingdom heard Zhou's laughter, they could not help but look curiously in the direction of the Blazing Sun Divine Capital. In addition, even though they did not know why His Majesty was happy, their current good life was given by His Majesty and His ministers. With His Majesty so happy, they could not help but be happy. When the passers-by saw this scene, they could not help but click their tongues in wonder. There was a saying, joy with the people, referring to the joy the king shares with his people. However, in the Blazing Sun Divine Kingdom, the commoners and the king enjoyed joy together. The commoners were actually the other way around. They were happy because the king was happy. How much did the people here love the king to have such a phenomenon? The travelers felt that they had seen the world. At the same time, they had a better impression of the God Lord of the Blazing Sun Divine Kingdom and the citizens of the Blazing Sun Divine Kingdom. Zhou was feeling his Grade 1 Supreme Sacred Body. Soon shock appeared on his face. My Grade 1 Supreme Sacred Bodhi's physical strength is actually comparable to a Grade 3 Defensive Supreme Divine Artifact. Even the most top Grade 4 Supreme God might not be able to break through my physical defense. If my Supreme Sacred Body advances to the 2nd level, won't my physical strength be invincible at the Supreme God stage? This is ridiculous. He looked amazed. The Grade 1 Supreme Sacred Body was already so powerful. Wouldn't a Grade 2 Supreme Sacred Body be invincible among Supreme Gods? Could a Grade 3 Supreme Sacred Body compare to a Quasi-Supreme Will Realm Expert? What about Grade 4? Could it be? He didn't dare to think about it. Zhou did not dare to think too far ahead. Then, he continued to count the other effects of the Grade 1 Supreme Sacred Body. Firstly, it was naturally the ability to be impervious to all techniques. The Grade 1 Supreme Sacred Body was not only comparable to a Grade 3 Defensive Supreme Divine Artifact in terms of physical defense, but it was also immune to any physical attacks, nomological attacks, and even will attacks from Grade 1 Supreme Gods and below. He was completely immune to them. Even if there were 10,000 Grade 1 Supreme Gods attacking Zhou, who had a Grade 1 Supreme Sacred Body at the same time, Zhou would be completely unharmed without any other defensive means. Furthermore, the Grade 1 Supreme Sacred Body also had an extremely high immunity to higher-level Supreme God-level attacks. Even a Grade 4 Supreme God-level nomological attack could weaken the power of an attack by about 30%. Even a quasi-supreme will level attack could weaken the power of an attack by half. This immunity ability is really abnormal. Zhou sighed. Then, the second supreme sacred body ability was to greatly increase his Lord Nomological talent. Zhou could sense that his Lord Nomological talent had greatly improved after attaining a grade 1 supreme sacred body. It was obvious how much Zhou had improved from how he used the word greatly to describe it. Let me test how strong my Lord's nomological talent has become. Then, he closed his eyes quietly. In just 10 seconds, he opened his eyes again. With a thought, lines of text notifications appeared in front of him. You have used your great talent and wisdom to create a new Lord talent. The specific talent effect is as follows: Lord talent. Calm heart, black iron tear. Calming heart. When you and your subjects calm down, your comprehension plus 5%. Zhou looked at this Lord talent. His eyes filled with surprise. 10 seconds. In just 10 seconds, he had created a new Lord talent from nothing. Even though this Lord talent was only a black iron tier Lord talent, it was not something he could do in the past. My Lord's nomological talent has increased by at least 30 times, or even more than before. Zhou thought in satisfaction. The improvement of the supreme sacred body to the Lord's nomological talent was too great. Let's try again. Should I create a mythical tier unique Lord talent? Or should I strengthen the mythical tier unique Lord talent I currently have? Or create a supreme unique Lord talent? Zhou pondered. Chapter 1573. Strengthening the Heavenly Summoning. 1. Zhou quickly dismissed the idea of creating the supreme unique Lord talent. Even though he could indeed create a Lord talent of this level now, it was not something that could be created in a short period of time. It required a lot of time. Therefore, he could only create the supreme and unique Lord talent when he was free at night. There was no need to do it now. As for creating the mythical tier unique Lord talent, Zhou thought for a moment and realized that he didn't seem to have any Lord talent that he needed to create. Then let's strengthen our current Lord talent. On the basis of the mythical tier unique Lord talent, strengthening they again is no less difficult than creating a new Lord talent. Zhou muttered to himself. Then, he began to think about which mythical tier unique Lord talent to strengthen. The Scarlet Brid Mother. This was not necessary. At present, he was not lacking in soldiers. What he lacked were top-notch experts of the Supreme God level, or even higher. At present, only the Supreme Unique Lord talent, the protection of the Supreme Will, could strengthen a super expert of this level. However, it was only possible to strengthen the Supreme Unique Lord talent unless he advanced to the Supreme Will realm and could create a Supreme Will Lord talent. He was a little conflicted. Then, he simply opened his Lord talent list, wanting to see which mythical tier 1 and only Lord talent was more suitable for him to try. Soon, his gaze landed on a Lord talent. Lord talent, Heavenly Summoning mythical tier unique. Let's strengthen this Lord talent. Zhou quickly made a decision. This Lord talent determined the lower limit of the strength of the Blazing Sun Divine Kingdom's subjects and soldiers. It was the most obvious increase in the overall strength of the Blazing Sun Divine Kingdom. There was no mistake in upgrading it. If you want to do it, do it. Zhou immediately sat on the Dao Comprehension futon and closed his eyes in deep thought. His body gradually emitted a 9-colored divine light again. At the same time, if a god spirit were to observe the interior of Zhou's divine body, they would discover that there was a large number of nomological networks distributed within his divine body. Some of these nomological networks were densely distributed, while others were sparsely distributed. However, overall, there wasn't a single godly body that didn't have a single nomological network. These nomological networks were none other than the manifestation of the Lord's laws on the divine body. At the same time, they were also proof that he had cultivated a grade 1 supreme sacred body. Right at that moment, a new network of Lord's laws quickly extended from a thick and solid network of Lord's laws, making this network of Lord's laws more complete. Just as this new network of Lord's laws was completely formed, Zhou slowly opened his eyes in the real world. He sensed the additional network of Lord's laws in his divine body and nodded slightly. Then, he became curious. The nomological network on my body is not only the intrinsic manifestation of the Lord talent, but also proof of my cultivation of the supreme sacred body. I wonder what will happen when my divine body is filled with a complete network of Lord laws one day. I have a feeling that it will trigger a qualitative change. Zhou was deep in thought. Then he stopped thinking about it. By the time his body was filled with the Lord's nomological network, his supreme sacred body would probably have cultivated to the level of a supreme will. This was too far away from him. It was useless to think about it now. Then, he looked at the enhanced Lord talent. Heavenly summoning. Lord talent. Heavenly summoning, mythical tier unique. Specific talent effect. Any subject you summon from the gate of summoning has a minimum strength of epic tier elementary grade. After reading it, a smile appeared on Zhou's face. The heavenly summoning had been successfully enhanced. From tomorrow onwards, the lowest strength of the subjects and soldiers summoned by him would reach the epic tier elementary grade. From the extraordinary tier to the epic tier. This was undoubtedly a qualitative change. Moreover, once he reached the epic tier elementary grade, would the legendary tier elementary grade still be far away? Even. How far was it from directly summoning a god spirit level subject? Zhou was looking forward to it. The subjects and soldiers summoned from the gate of summoning every day were all scenes from when they were god spirits. However, he felt that it was unlikely. That was ridiculous, but at least he could try. Tonight, he'll try to raise the Son of Destiny to the Supreme, the only level. Zhou thought. As for the other Lord talents, Zhou was not in a hurry to upgrade them immediately. He could postpone them for a few days. Then, he sensed the other effects of the Grade 1 Supreme Sacred Body. For example, the ability to suppress other special bloodlines and constitutions. There are a lot of other useful abilities. However, it was not worth mentioning when compared to the Supreme Unique Lord talent. Therefore, Zhou only felt it for a while before he stopped paying attention to his Supreme Sacred Body. Now that I've attained a Grade 1 Supreme Sacred Body, my Lord talent and laws have increased greatly. I should be advancing to a Grade 1 Supreme God soon. Zhou thought. Previously, he didn't feel like he was about to advance. However, after he cultivated a Grade 1 Supreme Sacred Body, he had a premonition. He was not far from the Grade 1 Supreme God level. It could be seen how powerful this Supreme Sacred Body was. He had only just cultivated it. When he cultivated the Supreme Sacred Body to a higher level, the strongest constitution of the myriad worlds would definitely give rise to more wonders and strengths. This somewhat surprised Zhou fight. If he didn't know that the other party wasn't an opponent who liked to plot, he might have thought that the other party had ulterior motives for saving him. Brother Demon Lord, why are you willing to save me? Zhou Marshall pondered for a moment, and finally decided to go straight to the point. Neither of them liked to beat around the bush. Since that was the case, they could just ask whatever they wanted. The Lord of 10,000 Evils fell silent for a few seconds before slowly saying, "Probably because you deserve to be saved. I don't want an interesting and powerful opponent like you to die in an inexplicable sneak attack at the level of a supreme will. If you want to die, you should die at the hands of U.S. Supreme Lord Reserve Army, me, Spring Autumn Dharma Lord, and God King Heaven Punishment. The three of us can do it, but not the ultimate void race. Who cares about them? Only the Supreme Will and the Crimson Overlord are paying attention to the Illusionist clan. Otherwise, they would have been expelled from the ultimate void battleground." Zhou Fight did not say anything. When Lord of 10,000 Evils saw this, he smiled and said with a complicated tone, "There's another reason. I think there's a high chance that I won't be able to snatch the position of Supreme Lord from the hands of the Spring Autumn Dharma Lord and the God King Heaven Punishment in this lifetime. They are too strong. So strong that I don't even hope to surpass them. I only dare to try my best to catch up to them. However, the more I chase, the more I understand how powerful they are. and the more I feel that I might never be able to surpass them in this lifetime. At this point, Lord of 10,000 Evils smiled and looked at Zhou Fight. I thought that my situation would be better after you, a newcomer, came. After all, I'm not the weakest among the 3 Supreme Lord Reserve Army. However, I seem to be at the bottom in terms of strength and performance alone. And just now, when I was suddenly desperate to save you, I suddenly understood something. I think I don't care about the so-called Supreme Lord position anymore. I only care about doing what I want to do, and what I should do. Haha. In addition, I have to tell you something. Don't be narcissistic. The reason why I dared to rush up to save you is not because I don't want to live, but because I have a trump card that can protect me. That's why I dared to rush up directly. If I didn't have some means of self-preservation, I wouldn't be stupid enough to save a competitor like you. The Lord of 10,000 Evils laughed and teased towards the end. Zhou Fight smiled and nodded. Then he asked, "How's your injury?" He had seen with his own eyes that when the Lord of 10,000 Evils was desperately trying to save him, he was ruthlessly attacked from behind by the Supreme God of Fire Poison, who did not care about morals. That was the full power attack of a grade 4 Supreme God. Even a 3rd Reserve Army Supreme Lord like the Lord of 10,000 Evils could not be completely fine. It's just a scratch. You'll be fine after you take some divine medicine and recuperate. Zhou did not say much. He directly took out more than 100 grade 3 and 4 Supreme God-level divine herbs from his #1 treasure vault and stored them in a world ring. Finally, he threw them to Lord of 10,000 Evils. You got hurt trying to save me, so I'll pay for it. The Lord of 10,000 Evils subconsciously wanted to refuse. Let's see what's in the world rings first. Zhou Fight said calmly before he could say anything further. When Lord of 10,000 Evils heard this, he subconsciously took a look. Then, his eyes immediately lit up. Thank you very much. The Lord of 10,000 Evils immediately changed his words. Zhou Fight shook his head and did not mind. Some grade 3 and 4 Supreme God-level divine herbs could be seen everywhere in his world ring. All of them were probably as tall as a mountain. The Eternal Mothership and the Demon Lord flew over from afar as the 2 gods chatted. When the 2 of them saw this, they stopped hiding and immediately flew out. They returned to the side of the cosmic battleship and gathered their army to attack Fire Poison City, which had lost more than half of its city. Even though Fire Poison City had lost most of its military strength, it still had Supreme God-level defensive facilities. Seeing that there was actually an army from the Supreme Will's camp attacking from afar, the Grade 1 Ultimate Void Supreme God in the lead, who was also the current temporary City Lord of Fire Poison City, immediately activated the Grade 2 Supreme God defense facilities in the city. Even if Zhou Fight and Lord of 10,000 Evils had tens of billions of God spirits under them, they would not be able to breach the Fire Poison City in a short period of time. However, when Zhou Fight took out the Builder Tree City Crushing Hammer and easily shattered Fire Poison City's Grade 2 Supreme God-level defensive facilities, the enemy's doomsday completely arrived. When the army of tens of billions of God spirits and more than 20 Supreme Gods surged into this Fire Poison main city that only had 2 billion God spirits and 1 Supreme God, the main city of this Grade 2 war territory was completely conquered in less than a moment, and all the enemies were killed. Zhou Fight nodded slightly when he saw this. Then, he said to Lord of 10,000 Evils, the main cities of the Lotus Flame War territories and the Fire Poison War territories have been completely conquered by us. Next, we only need to conquer the other small cities in these 2 war territories one by one, and these 2 war territories will be completely ours. Make the most of it. Finish it before the end of the day. Zhou Fight said. There are only 5 other cities in these 2 war territories. It's easy to deal with them. It won't take long. It should be done today. The Lord of 10,000 Evils nodded in agreement. Then, he looked at Zhou Fight in a daze. Why are you looking at me like that? Zhou Fight felt a chill run down his spine. First, they broke through a Grade 3 war territory in 2 days. Now in just a day, they broke through a Grade 2 war territory and a Grade 3 war territory. Brother Common People's Regal. You're amazing. You did what I always wanted to do. Zhou Feit was stunned for a moment before he smiled. Is this the feeling of being acknowledged by his opponent? Not bad. Chapter 1575. Mission completed. The Supreme Will's Reward. After Zhou Feit and the Lord of 10,000 Evils conquered the territory of the Fire-Poison War, they rushed to the other two small cities in the territory of the Fire-Poison War. These two small cities were far weaker than the Fire-Poison City and the Lotus Flame Main City. Therefore, Zhou Feit and Lord of 10,000 Evils easily took down these two small cities. Then, they rushed to the Lotus Flame War territories to conquer the remaining three cities. Even though these three cities were stronger than the small cities in the Fire-Poison War territories, they were not much stronger. Therefore, they conquered them without much effort. Just as these two war territories completely belonged to Zhou Marshal, Zhou Feit finally had the time to look at the mission completion notification that had appeared long ago. Ultimate Void Battlefield Mission Tips. Congratulations, Lord of the Blazing Sun. You have successfully conquered the Fire-Poison Main City and the entire Fire-Poison War territory, and eliminated or conquered Void General Linga, Grade 1 Supreme God. Void General Nika, Grade 2 Supreme God. Void General Aki, Grade 2 Supreme God. Void General Base, Grade 2 Supreme God. Void General Zul, Grade 3 Supreme God. Void General Ale, Grade 3 Supreme God. Void General Fucha, Grade 4 Supreme God. Void General Lotus Flame, Grade 4 Supreme God, and are rewarded with 15 million military merit points, 5 Supreme God level mission medals, and 1 Book of the God Spirit, Grade 4 Supreme God. Ultimate Void Battlefield Mission Tips. Congratulations, Lord of the Blazing Sun. You have successfully conquered the Lotus Flame Main City and the entire Lotus Flame War territories, and eliminated or conquered Void General Abu, Grade 1 Supreme God. Void General Kawa, Grade 2 Supreme God. Void General Elkin, Grade 2 Supreme God. Void General Aipa, Grade 3 Supreme God. Void General Mayashir, Grade 3 Supreme God. Void General Aurelio, Grade 4 Supreme God. Void General Fire Poison, Grade 4 Supreme God, and are rewarded with 15 million military merit points, 5 Supreme God level mission medals, and 1 Book of the God Spirit, Grade 4 Supreme God. Zhou Feit nodded slightly and opened his Lord Information Panel. User, Lord of the Blazing Sun, Supreme Lord's 4th Reserve Army, Ultimate Void Battlefield, 2nd Leader of the Supreme Will Camp, Military Merit, 30 million points mission medal 14, 5 Supreme God mission medals other rewards, 2 Book of the God Spirit, Grade 4 Supreme God. I have enough military merits and mission medals to exchange for race divine artifacts again. Zhou Feit said to himself with a smile. He wasn't in a hurry to return. Instead, he took out the map of the Ultimate Void Battlefield and checked it. The huge battlefield map was divided into a total of 15 war territories. 13 war territories, excluding the 2 highest level sacred territories, were all Supreme God level war territories. Among these war territories, the Zhou Feit had already occupied the Wanlong War territories, Grade 1 Supreme God War territories, the Fire Poison War territories, Grade 2 Supreme God War territories, and the Lotus Flame War territories, Grade 3 Supreme God Realm War territories. Compared to when he first came, in the map of the entire battlefield, only a lone sanctuary controlled by Lord of 10,000 Evils looked much better. The Lord of 10,000 Evils was right beside Zhou Feit. He also saw the map of the battlefield that had changed greatly. He looked at Zhou Feit, who was focused on the map, with a complicated and admiring expression. All of this was brought about by the newly appointed Supreme Lord's 4th Reserve Army. It seemed that it would not be long before the weight of my Supreme Lord's 3rd Reserve would decrease. The Lord of 10,000 Evils had mixed feelings. However, miraculously, he wasn't afraid or worried at all. Instead, he felt very relieved. To me, the status of a Supreme Lord Reserve Army is both a spur and a pressure of fear. Perhaps I've wanted to escape this pressure for a long time. It's still the happiest to lead the sealed demons in the myriad worlds, and seal them without any burdens in the past. the Lord of 10,000 Evils thought. At this moment, he looked into the distance and was suddenly stunned. Then, he immediately said respectfully, "Greetings, Supreme Will." Zhou Fight, who was looking at the map of the battlefield, immediately looked up when he heard this. Indeed, he saw that the Supreme Will had appeared at some point in time, and was smiling at them not far away. "Greetings, Lord Supreme Will." He put away the map of the battlefield and said respectfully. At the same time, Zhou, who was in the Reincarnation Sacred Palace, stood up and said. The Supreme Will slowly walked over and looked at Zhou Fight, and Lord of 10,000 Evils. His gaze stopped on Zhou Fight. A gentle smile appeared on his face. Zhou, Lord of 10,000 Evils. You guys did a good job. It's been a long time since we've had such a great victory in the Ultimate Void battlefield. Lord Supreme Will. Lord of 10,000 Evils smiled bitterly and said, Actually, today's victory has little to do with me. I only led my troops to participate. Zhou could still obtain this great victory even without me. Brother Demon Lord, you're being too humble. Brother Demon Lord, and the 1,000 Evil army under him, are important combat forces of our Supreme Will. It would be difficult for me to obtain today's victory alone without him, and the 1,000 Evil army participating. Zhou returned the favor. Don't be so modest in front of me. I've seen what you've done. I won't treat you badly. The Supreme Will laughed. Seeing that he had such a good relationship with the two Supreme Lord reserves under him. While he was surprised, he was also very relieved. He waved his right hand, and 5 supreme proofs appeared in front of him. Lord of 10,000 Evils, you cooperated with the common people's regal to take back the 2 war territories, and made great contributions. These 5 supreme proofs will be rewarded to you. Thank you, Lord Supreme Will. The Lord of 10,000 Evils was very happy. 5 supreme proofs could give birth to 5 grade 1 supreme gods under him. Even though these 5 grade 1 supreme gods could only stay at the grade 1 supreme god realm for the rest of their lives. If they were bestowed to those master gods who were stuck at the advanced grade of the master god tier, those master god tiers would definitely be willing to accept it if there were no accidents. The Supreme Will nodded and looked at Zhou Fight with a gentle expression. Zhou, ever since you came to the Ultimate Void battleground, the Ultimate Void battleground has been changing day by day because of your existence. The 3 Supreme God battlefield territories that were once lost have returned because of you. I've seen all of this. You should be the main credit. I'll reward you with these. In the next second, a total of 10 items appeared in front of Zhou Fight. Chapter 1576, Quasi-Supreme Will Level Divine Artifact, Below Supreme Grade. Trade. This scene stunned the Lord of 10,000 Evils. Zhou Fight was also excited. He immediately looked over. First, there were a total of 7 supreme proofs. Then there were 2 drops of willpower. Finally, there was a black armor. Zhou Fight looked over. Name of the divine artifact. Below Supreme Grade, Grade of Divine Artifact. Quasi-Supreme Will. Divine Artifact Law, below Supreme Grade. As a top-notch defensive divine artifact below Supreme Grade, it can negate all attacks from the outside world below Supreme Will level. Only Supreme Will level experts can injure gods below Supreme Will level. Prompt 1. If a non-Supreme Willpower Realm expert wants to forcefully use below Supreme Grade, they will need to consume a large amount of Supreme God Divine Power to use it. Prompt 2. It can be bounded to the soul. When he saw the information of this divine artifact, his eyes immediately lit up. This below Supreme Grade is so good. This was actually a divine artifact at the Quasi-Supreme Will realm. Initially, Zhou Fight was a little worried. Without the treasures left behind by the Supreme God of the Heavenly Blade, how could he face the Quasi-Supreme Willpower elites in the future? The news that he had the combat strength of a Quasi-Supreme Willpower Realm expert would definitely reach the ears of the Ultimate Void race after this day anyway. The next time he faced the enemies of the Ultimate Void race, the other party would most likely send the same Quasi-Supreme Willpower Realm expert to deal with him. They knew what they were doing. His Quasi-Supreme Willpower Realm combat strength was forcefully accumulated by self-destructing a large number of supreme divine artifacts. He couldn't possibly self-destruct a large number of supreme divine artifacts every time to deal with the enemy, right? No matter how many supreme divine artifacts Zhou had, he still felt heartache for using them like this. However, it was better now. With this below supreme grade, he wouldn't have to rely on self-destructing supreme divine artifacts to protect himself the next time he faced a quasi-supreme willpower realm expert or quasi-supreme willpower realm technique. This below supreme grade was enough to protect him and could even be used to counterattack the enemy. As for god spirits who were not at the quasi-supreme will realm, forcefully using this below supreme grade would consume a large amount of supreme divine power. Zhou Fight was not very worried about this. He had an abnormal lord law skill like the king. Every supreme god under he was the source of his supreme god power. With such a divine power reserve resource, it should not be a problem to forcefully use it for a period of time. He happily put away the supreme divine artifact and the other treasures. These 7 supreme proofs were enough to give birth to 7 grade 1 supreme gods under his command. It was also a very good reward. As for the 2 drops of will source, there was even less to say. He could directly create 2 will divine transformation realm experts without any side effects. However, Zhou did not intend to use them himself. Instead, he left them all for his subordinates to use. This was because he now had the premier heart. He could definitely cultivate to the limit of the will manifestation in the future. Later on, he obtained the will holy artifact, holy scripture of the heart. This will holy artifact also had the effect of assisting the cultivation of willpower. It even had the effect of assisting cultivation for existences at the supreme willpower realm. Its supplementary cultivation was even stronger than the premier heart. With these 2 top-notch treasures, Zhou's efficiency in cultivating his will was not much inferior to directly consuming the source of will. If he absorbed the 2 drops of willpower, he would only be able to save 3 to 5 days at most. The improvement wouldn't be much. Since that was the case, it was better to leave it all to his subordinates. Several of his subordinates had already reached the limit of will like light. They were only 1 step away from breaking through the limit and advancing to the will divine transformation realm, thereby advancing to the supreme god level. These 2 drops of willpower were more important to them. It didn't matter if he had these 2 drops of willpower or not. Speaking of which, after Zhou Fight kept all the rewards, he respectfully said to the Supreme Will, "Thank you for the reward, Lord Supreme Will. You don't have to say that, because you deserve it." The Supreme Will smiled gently. Zhou Fight smiled. Then, the Supreme Will looked at Lord of 10,000 Evils and said, "Lord of 10,000 Evils, common people's regal, and I have some matters to discuss. You can leave first." "Yes, my lord. In that case, I'll go back and take care of some matters." The Lord of 10,000 Evils smiled and left. He did not need to think much to know that the Supreme Will and Zhou Zhan would definitely be talking about the Supreme Divine Artifact. He would definitely want the Supreme God weapon in Zhou Fight's hands if he was the Supreme Will after all. At most, he would not let Zhou Fight suffer any losses. The Supreme Will had always been generous. The Lord of 10,000 Evils felt that not only would Zhou Fight not suffer a loss, but would also make a huge profit. At the thought of this, the Lord of 10,000 Evils couldn't help but feel envious. I wonder what benefits the brother common people's regal will get this time. Then, he shook his head and stopped thinking about it. He returned to his base camp. After Lord of 10,000 Evils left, the Supreme Will looked at Zhou Fight and smiled. "You know what I want to talk to you about? It's about the Supreme Divine Artifact, right?" Zhou Fight said. "That's right." The Supreme Will nodded and sighed. "We are different from the Ultimate Void race. They have exclusive racial talents. Every Ultimate Void race can salvage ownerless treasures that have wandered in the Ultimate Void. You know the environment of the Ultimate Void. Only divine artifacts can exist in that kind of environment and not be damaged. Therefore, after countless years of accumulation, the Ultimate Void race has long obtained a large number of divine artifacts True God Tier Divine Artifacts, Master God Tier Divine Artifacts, and even Supreme Divine Artifacts. On the other hand, were different. If we want to obtain Supreme Divine Artifacts, other than some naturally born Supreme Divine Artifacts nurtured by extremely rare laws, we can only rely on ourselves to personally forge the other Supreme Divine Artifacts. However, the forging of Supreme God Artifacts is extremely difficult. Even the Supreme God of Creation, who is best at forging Supreme God Artifacts, needs at least 10,000 years to gather all the materials and forge a Supreme Divine Artifact. Moreover, the Supreme Divine Artifacts that he forged are not of very high grades. Most of them are Grade 1 or Grade 2 Supreme Divine Artifacts. Grade 3 Supreme Divine Artifacts are extremely rare. As for Grade 4 Supreme Divine Artifacts, he has only forged a total of 25. Until now, our Supreme Great Cosmos and the Crimson Great Cosmos have very few Supreme Divine Artifacts. Some Supreme Gods still use Master God Tier Divine Artifacts as their weapons and equipment. Common people's regal, I need the Supreme Divine Artifact in your hands. You can tell me what you want. The Supreme Will said very straightforwardly, Lord Supreme Will, how many Supreme Divine Artifacts do you want? Zhou Fight asked after a few seconds of silence. How much do you have? The Supreme Will asked. More than 100,000. Zhou Fight confessed and quickly added, there will be more in the future. Give me 100,000 first. The Supreme Will's face was filled with joy as he spoke without hesitation. Not only was Zhou Fight not dissatisfied, he even laughed. The value of 100,000 Supreme Divine Artifacts was not low. It could even be said to be very, very high. It seemed like the Supreme Will was going to take out a top-grade treasure to exchange with him. Zhou Fight expressed that he had a very bold idea for what he desired. Chapter 1577 Trade. 3 Race Divine Artifacts. 1. Before I say what I want, I have a question to ask. Ask away, the Supreme Will said. Lord Supreme Will, with your ability, can't you directly create a large number of Supreme Divine Artifacts for your subordinates to use? Zhou Fight questioned. He could even obtain a large number of Supreme Divine Artifacts through Heavenly Fate Di Huang. As an expert whose will had transcended the realm, the Supreme Will was 3 levels higher than him. It was impossible for him to not be able to do it, right? You and I walk different paths. You can use Heavenly Fate Di Huang to create something out of nothing. My path works wonders in other ways, but not in making something out of nothing. The Supreme Will shook his head. To be honest, even he felt a little envious of Zhou's Lord's nomological path. To be able to possess more than 100,000 Supreme Divine Artifacts at the Master God Tier stage, it could be seen how ridiculous Zhou's Lord path was. This little guy probably won't have to worry about resources for the rest of his life. The Supreme Will sighed in his heart. Zhou Fight nodded thoughtfully. The main body had once guessed the Lord's nomological path of the Supreme Will. That was, the greatest virtue has the characteristic of water, where benefit flows to many, but it takes no credit for the good that was done. If a person does not compete, one in the world can compete with him. He looked at the Supreme Will's calm and gentle smile, and felt a little emotional. His Lord's law path was very strong. He was simply invincible, especially in terms of obtaining resources. However, the path of the Supreme Will was also very unfathomable, so he still couldn't figure it out. So what if Heavenly Fate Di Huang had a large number of Supreme Divine Artifacts? I might not have this ability, but am his subordinate and heir. I have more than 100,000 Supreme Divine Artifacts, which means that the other party also has Supreme Divine Artifacts. At most, I will trade or pay for them. Oh, Lord Supreme Will. Then say I asked for a deal. Zhou Fight looked at the Supreme Will and said with a solemn expression, I want to inherit your will to. When the Supreme Will heard this, a faint smile appeared on his face. He actually did not seem surprised at all. The admiration in his eyes intensified as he looked at Zhou Fight. Soldiers who don't want to be generals are not good soldiers. Similarly, an expert who did not want to become a top expert was definitely not an outstanding successor. And now Zhou, who was only a Master God Tier, had begun to seek a legacy and path for his future will to transcend. He had great ambitions without a doubt, and the Supreme will like such ambitious heirs. However, it wasn't easy to obtain his willpower. You're very bold, but my will transcends inheritance. It's not something that 100,000 Supreme Divine Artifacts can exchange for. The Supreme will laughed. Zhou Feit nodded. Of course he knew. They were still Supreme Divine Artifacts, no matter how many Supreme Divine Artifacts there were. Not to mention an existence like the Supreme Will. Even existences at the Supreme Will realm would not use a Supreme Divine Artifact. They like to use Will Holy Artifacts the most as weapons of a higher level. It's not a Supreme Divine Artifact. Zhou Feit stretched out his right hand, and saw the Holy Scripture of the Heart appear in his hand. There will also be Will Holy Artifacts. Zhou Feit said in a deep voice. If I have extra Will Holy Artifacts in the future, I will also give them to Lord Supreme Will, and let Lord Supreme Will control them. The Supreme Will looked at the Holy Scripture of the Heart in Zhou Feit's hand and smiled. You're quite lucky. He actually obtained a Will Holy Artifact when he was a Master God tier. The Supreme Will thought for a moment and said, I will pass on my will to you if you can bring me 10 Will Holy Artifacts. He didn't need a Will Holy Artifact, but his subordinates needed one. It was the same as the Supreme Divine Artifact. The Will Holy Artifacts that they possessed were also extremely rare, and they urgently needed external Will Holy Artifacts to replenish them. If Zhou could do it, he could solve this problem. Okay. Zhou Feit was overjoyed and agreed without hesitation. 10 Will Holy Artifacts sounded like a lot for others, but if his main body could obtain a Will Holy Artifact at the Master God tier level, he would become a Supreme God in the future, and even a Supreme Will. He was confident that he could obtain even more Will Holy Artifacts to satisfy the requirements of the Supreme Will. Zhou Feit was confident about this. But I have to warn you, the higher the level of a powerhouse, the more impossible it is for him to replicate his path. My path in particular is almost the exact opposite of yours. My legacy will at most give you a reference for your future. Don't be greedy and go astray in the future. Your own path is bright enough. The Supreme will remind it. Zhou understands. Far away in the Reincarnation Sacred Palace, Zhou bowed deeply to the Supreme Will. The Supreme Will nodded. When Zhou Feit saw this, he did not delay and directly took out 100,000 Supreme Divine Artifacts from his number 1 treasure vault, and placed them into a Supreme Divine Artifact level storage Divine Artifact before handing it to the Supreme Will. The Supreme Will looked at the Supreme Divine Artifact storage treasure in his hand and smiled slightly. Then, his body gradually disappeared from the spot. Zhou Feit looked at the place where the Supreme Will disappeared, and a smile appeared on his face. As long as he gathered 10 Will Holy Artifacts, he would be able to obtain the will of the Supreme Will, and transcend the inheritance. With that legacy that could be used as a reference, his future path could be said to be more than half as difficult as before. Now the future is really bright and clear. Zhou Feit muttered to himself. Right at that moment, it was unknown when the Lord of 10,000 Evils appeared and came to his side. Chapter 1578 Trade. 3 Race Divine Artifacts. 2. Isn't it a big deal? The Lord of 10,000 Evils smiled. I earned a lot from this. Zhou Feit nodded in agreement. The Lord of 10,000 Evils looked at the other party's satisfied expression, and felt even more envious. The price offered by the Supreme Will probably far exceeded his imagination for a deal that could satisfy a fellow who regarded Supreme Divine Artifacts as nothing. What exactly did the Supreme Will use to exchange for the Supreme God weapon? The Lord of 10,000 Evils couldn't help but ask curiously. Oh, it's a secret. Zhou Feit smiled. I'm just curious, haha. The Lord of 10,000 Evils smiled awkwardly. He also knew that what he had just said was a little presumptuous, but he was really curious. Zhou Feit did not mind. After Lord of 10,000 Evils risked his life to save him, his impression of this fellow had improved a lot, so he didn't care about such a small matter. Come on. Return to your Demon Lord base planet. I've just earned a wave of military merits and Supreme God mission medals. It's time to exchange for some race divine artifacts. Zhou Fite smiled. Okay. The Lord of 10,000 Evils nodded. Then, the two of them did not stay any longer, and immediately sent the army back to the Demon Lord base planet. As for the few void base planets that they had captured, even though Zhou Fite had already occupied them, he had no intention of sending his subordinates to garrison them. To him, this ultimate void battleground was only a place where the Supreme Will tested him abilities. He would not stay here for long. With such troops to garrison and defend the city, it was better to grasp them in his hands and attack the other ultimate void base cities. This way, if he performed well in front of the Supreme Will, he might even be able to increase his Supreme Lord Reserve Army authority. Moreover, the Void Mystic Realm was much better than the Void Base. Of course, the Void Bases that he occupied could not be left unguarded. Zhou Fite planned to entrust this matter to Lord of 10,000 Evils, who would most likely agree. Zhou Fite was not worried about whether the other party would take over his territory. His current power was almost on par with Lord of 10,000 Evils after all. In terms of combat power, he could also compare to a quasi-supreme willpower level divine artifact by relying on the self-destruction of a supreme divine artifact. In addition, he had just obtained a quasi-supreme willpower level divine artifact. He wouldn't be afraid of Lord of 10,000 Evils in a one-on-one fight. Under such circumstances, Zhou Fite was naturally not afraid of the other party taking over his territory. As for his character, Zhou Fite did not consider it, even if he thought that Lord of 10,000 Evils was a good friend. However, he would always believe that the most trustworthy thing in the world would always be his own strength. Soon, Zhou Fite first returned to the Demon Lord base planet through the Dragon God of all life. Because the army of the Thousand Evil Army had yet to return, there were relatively few living beings on the planet of the Demon Lord's base, especially on the Supreme God Realm Monument. There was not a single God spirit. This was exactly what Zhou Zhan wanted. He came to the Supreme God Realm Monument alone, and began to search for the race divine artifact he wanted. A moment later, the divine artifacts of the three races appeared in his eyes. Race divine artifact, Heart of Light. Top race divine artifact, a universal race divine artifact. After the Lord recognizes it as its master, the subjects under his command will gain a certain amount of light rule talent. When a new subject is born, there is a 10% chance of awakening light rule talent, increasing the light rule immunity of the subjects under his command, and reducing the light rule damage received by 20%. Required military merit, 8 million military merit, 4 Supreme God mission medals. Race divine artifact, Moon Shadow. Top race divine artifact, a universal race divine artifact that floats in the sky above the race's territory. Every time night falls, the moon shadow will overlap with the supreme star, Great Lunar Star. It will also fuse with the power of the Great Lunar Star and release a large amount of moonlight energy that can be absorbed, thereby increasing the cultivation efficiency of all subjects in the race's territory by 20%. At the same time, the existence of the moon shadow can increase the talent of the life form in the race's territory, the talent of the Yin Law, and the talent of the Shadow Law. It can increase the Yin type immunity and the Shadow type immunity of the life forms in the race's territory, reducing the damage received by 10% of the Yin type damage and 20% of the Shadow type damage. Required military merits, 10 million military merits, 5 Supreme Mission Medals, Race Divine Artifact. The Sun's Golden Dawn. Top race divine artifact, exclusive race divine artifact. The Sun's Golden Dawn was once a small piece of the origin shell that had fallen off the supreme star, Sun Star. Later on, after being nurtured and evolved by the Golden Crow divine race, it became an exclusive race divine artifact of the Golden Crow divine race. The Lord of the Golden Crow divine race, who possesses the Sun's Golden Dawn, will have a certain amount of Yang Elemental Law talent increase in the subjects under his command. When a new subject is born, there is a 5% chance of awakening the Yang Elemental Law talent. When cultivating under the Sun Star, It will increase the cultivation efficiency of all subjects in the territory of the race by 20%. It will increase the yang elemental immunity of the life forms in the territory of the race and reduce the damage received by 10% of the yang element. Required military merits: 12 million military merits, 5 supreme mission medals. They'll do. After careful consideration, Zoophyte finally decided to exchange all 3 of their race divine artifacts. Among the abilities of these 3 race divine artifacts, there were different attribute immunity abilities, which met the requirements for the main body to create a race divine artifact of the blazing sun god race that was immune to all attributes. Therefore, he definitely had to exchange for it. It didn't matter even if he had to spend all his military merits and mission medals. Soon, after consuming almost all of his military merits and mission medals, these 3 race divine artifacts appeared in front of him. The Heart of Light was an 18-sided crystal that emitted a resplendent white light. Even though the light emitted by he was extremely bright, when one looked straight at it, the magical feeling was not blinding. Instead, it felt as if he was immersed in a hot spring. It was especially comfortable. The shadow of the moon was a black sphere that looked like the moon. Contrary to the Heart of Light, the moon shadow emitted a dark and cold aura. When one looked over, it was very easy for ordinary people to get lost in the endless darkness revealed by the moon shadow. As for the sun's golden dawn, it was an irregular piece of golden ore. Its entire body was scorching hot. Even though Zoophyte already had a grade 1 supreme sacred body, he still felt that it was very hot when he held it. Inside the ore, there was a clearly visible phantom of a golden crow. It slowly flew inside the ore, looking free and unrestrained, as if there was an entire world inside that allowed him to fly freely. That's right. Zoophyte nodded in satisfaction. Then, he made the Heart of Light and Moon Shadow recognize him as their master. As for the last sun's golden dawn, it was a divine artifact of the Golden Crow divine clan. So Zoophyte was temporarily unable to recognize it as his master. However, solving this problem is simple. He took out the common people's cauldron and directly threw the sun's golden dawn into it to refine and modify it. During this period, Zoophyte felt that his providence was continuously depleted. It was not until he had consumed 1% of his providence that the refinement and transformation of the race's divine artifact finally ended. It took 1% of my luck to complete the refinement. Zoophyte could not help but be surprised. This was the first time he had encountered a divine artifact that required so much luck to successfully modify. Should he say that it was indeed worthy of being called a divine artifact formed from the origin shell of the supreme star, Sun Star? With such a powerful background, the consumption of providence had indeed increased. Hopefully, he would be satisfied with the modified effect. Right at that moment, there was a pop. The cauldron lid of the common people's cauldron bounced up, and a golden light flew out. Then, it shot straight at Zoophyte and finally floated in front of him. It was the sun's golden dawn. Zoophyte looked at it, and then checked his attributes. In the end, he discovered that although the modified Golden Sun Divine Artifact had changed from an exclusive race Divine Artifact to a universal race Divine Artifact, its attributes had not been reduced at all. There's no reduction. No wonder I spent 1% of my luck. Zoophyte muttered to himself. Normally speaking, modifying race Divine Artifacts would reduce the attributes of the original race Divine Artifact to complete the modification. This was the first time he had seen such a situation, where his attributes hadn't been reduced at all. Then, he sensed his destiny and looked even more satisfied. This was because he realized that his providence had increased by 2%. Not only did it make up for the consumption of the modified divine artifact, but it even increased by 1%. It was equivalent to giving away 10 high-level Divine Kingdom Lord factions for free. Huge profit. Zoophyte smiled. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support. And don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference. as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.